Okay, we're recording.
Yay.
Hey.
Yeah, so it'd be nice if I wasn't freezing my friggin' balls off out here, by the way.
Good.
Seriously.
That's going to go on the YouTube video.
Well, you know what? People know it. I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
Because it's not as cold as you think it is. It's just because it's been so warm out here lately.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
We've been fucking spoiled by...
Mm-hmm. Viva la global warming, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I can't get the seat right. God, I'm bitching today.
What's new? That's why I call you tattooed. You should be like whiny tattooed diva bitch super fan.
Hey.
If I could spell.
It's going to go on YouTube.
Well, it is fucker.
It's going to go on YouTube. Threaten me with a good time.
Oh. Wait.
Speaking of YouTube.
Oh, sorry. Never mind, I'm not going to say it.
Anyways. So that's the story, though. I mean, no doubt about it. So I may be actually a friggin' Eskimo by the time this thing is over.
Really?
I don't know. Maybe. Perhaps.
Do you know we call them Inuit up here in Canada?
What do you call them?
Inuit? Inuit?
Inuit?
Maybe. Perhaps.
Really?
Oh, there, we're live. I can hear it.
Well, yeah, Inuit, huh?
Yep.
Is that what you think that New Hook kid is? The BC hockey kid?
No, I think he's Indigenous.
Well, Indigenous means he's from Canada. He's Canadian.
No, it doesn't.
Right?
Indigenous is what we refer to as what used to be called the Indians. So Indigenous peoples are the people who were here before the Europeans arrived and brought whatever.
And the Eskimos, or whatever you call them?
Yeah, the Inuit are Indigenous too. I'm confusing you.
It's way too early for this shit.
Okay, we'll talk about it after.
Way too early for this conversation. What the hell are you freaking talking about? And there's your lesson for Eskimos versus Indians in the great north of Canada. So anyway, are we live yet, by the way?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, we're recording this. I am on.
No.
We're not live yet?
No. I think so.
No, we are.
But anyway, so I guess we get ready to go here. So, God, it's cold out though. But we'll have fun with this. So, yeah,
we are live because people are.
I did. Oh, it's okay. I got it. All right, thanks.
Yeah, we are live.
Oh, cool. That's good
Hi,
stuff.
Sharita.
So, yeah.
Hi, Caroline. Hi, Jacob. Hi,
so everybody's on. So everybody's on.
Yeah.
God. So anyway, so that was a fun little podcast we did. I thought overall.
Yeah. No, it was.
I thought it was fun. I should have coffee out here today. I should make freaking coffee today.
A lot of people watching.
I don't give a shit. You can really freaking want. But no, it's good. So yeah, so everybody's jumping on. So that was fun. We got to actually do the notification today. I figured out how to do that. That was exciting.
Yeah. No, it was good.
Yeah. But hopefully we get some people who from my work people jumping on. And so we'll have fun with that. So
wow. I think it's because we created the event and then we both shared it.
You mean I created the event?
Sorry,
Andrew,
no,
okay?
it was Pike's idea.
Andrea gets no credit from me. She gets no credit from me. So it's definitely
She gave you
fun.
credit yesterday.
She did give me credit yesterday, as a matter of fact. Well, she begrudgingly gave me credit. She stole my Facebook thing yesterday, too, as a matter of fact.
It's not stealing if you give credit.
Yeah, but she begrudgingly did. Anyway. So hopefully everybody gets to listen to the podcast. That was definitely a fun one doing. I think that was one of our better ones. I think you liked doing that one, too. That was fun.
Oh, I enjoyed it. I love talking about the March to the Sea. The March is one of my more favorite things from the Civil War just because it was so different, right? Like,
you know what you forgot to mention?
What?
The March to the Sea. What have you been talking about for months and months and months about March to the Sea?
I don't know. It's been.
You mentioned Ringgold Gap. You never did, and I was waiting for that.
I know I didn't. Well, because what I was telling you the night before when we were doing our little dress rehearsal
Mhm.
I read a quote from Sherman where he went to this veterans gathering. It was actually for Howard's right wing, so Army of the Tennessee. And Sherman gave this speech there that said to these men, the March to the Sea began in Vicksburg. That's what we were always doing.
Backed on that one pretty quick.
No, but I still do think it began in Ringgold Gap.
I think it's fair, but I'm surprised you didn't mention it. You've been mentioning a noun, a verb, and Ringgold Gap for the last 6 months with this thing, and you've all of a sudden you just don't mention it. That was a surprise. It was a surprise to me. Sorry, it was.
Hi, Ryan. Look at you giving me shit.
American Afternoon
You know
Colonial.
what?
That's
You know
right.
what?
He's
You
over
know
in
what?
England.
There's 2 people on this podcast weeks.
What?
You could have mentioned it as well.
I was waiting for you. I'm not going to steal your thunder. That was your
Steal
opportunity.
my thunder.
Okay, fine. That's fine. Hey,
Afternoon
Ryan.
Colonials. Hi, Scott. Hi, Barbara.
Damn loyalist. I thought he was Irish. What happened to that? He should be on our side. Although, you know what, though? I'm like mostly British, so I can't really.
That's why you hate
I see it
yourself,
both
right?
ways. So, yeah, exactly. But I can see it both ways. Here's Roger. He's on. He's about to watch a very disappointing Notre Dame game for him this afternoon. Hopefully,
Is he a
PC
Notre
beats the
Dame
shot.
fan?
He is. He's a fucking. You know what? So yeah, that game's today, and so we'll no fans, of course. I can't be doing that.
I
But
plan on watching it.
we'll see what happens. I expect a little with football nowadays for any of the teams I follow. I think this is probably going to be a double loss weekend. Hey, Gabe.
Hey, Jim.
Jimmy got up early, I guess, huh?
Yeah, he said he was going to set his alarm, get up for this, so that's awesome.
What time? He's out in the Midwest somewhere, isn't he?
Yeah, so he's like
Jim,
an hour behind.
Should set your alarm for. I wish I could sleep late.
Not everybody's like us and gets up at like the crack of stupid.
Got to get up and read. Got to get up and enjoy the day.
So that's what I did. I was up and reading Battle Above the Clouds by David A. Powell, which is
Dave Powell, our boy from.
Yep. Yeah. Getting prepped for next week's episode.
We got to be on that podcast with that live thing with what was that? That was the thing on Vicksburg, right? We did.
No, that was the one that Eric Wittenberg gave the talk about. Where I completely was a super fan over.
The crack of stupid, or as I call it, the ass crack of dawn.
Yeah, hey,
that's
Joseph.
what I call it. And I saw with Heck,
Barbara said she saw us with Heckman and thought I'd give it a try. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Hope you enjoy it.
We get to be on with our friend John. Anybody who doesn't follow him, you really should. He's the tattooed historian, John Heckman. Good dude.
Yeah.
And so he had us on to talk with us for some inexplicable reason. We had fun with him, talk about our different things.
Yeah, it was good.
No Buckeye game today. Thank you, Mr. COVID, Caroline. Well, it is what it is with that one, you know.
Yeah.
I guess Ohio State. I guess not everybody can be a Michigan fan. I guess But anyway, I'm kidding.
Ryan said, actually, my Irish family fought for the British in the Revolutionary War. Where would British imperialism be without the Irish to do all the fighting for him, or the US or the CSA? I'm seeing a pattern. Jim didn't get to bed until 3 a.m.
It's so funny. Ryan's right, though. It seems like the one country that can't seem to shake England is you guys. Don't you guys have some tea to throw in the water or something? Don't you have anything?
I would wholeheartedly get behind that. I would go throw tea in the Goddard Harbor if it meant I could sever ties with the crown.
Definitely. But so anyway, so we definitely enjoyed the podcast. I think that was fun to do. And it's always fun. It's interesting about the Sherman's March to the Sea, though, because there's really the Griswold battle, Griswoldville.
Yep.
Right. And it's funny because I always, I think of that battle, I always think of Charles Griswold pulling up and the battle's going off, roll him up, taking off like a vacation movie.
Don't you mean Clark Griswold?
Clark Griswold. What did I say?
Charles Griswold.
I don't know. Close enough.
Clark W. Griswold. Hey, Allie K.
But but it was fun though because it was good to study that and learn that because to go into it again because it's such an important part of history that I don't want to say a lot of people don't appreciate, but I think they assume there's a lot more battles that go on during it. Like it was fun. And like we said in the podcast, and hopefully people listen because we had fun making it. But if you would think that the Confederate would have offered more defenses and more stops along the way for them because they really, as much as he gets credit for the March to the Sea, that's like me taking a march to Boston. I mean, if no one's going to stop me, I just keep walking, right?
He had, there was very little resistance at the beginning, but towards the end, there was more guerrilla warfare going on. which we'll talk about probably in the second part of our part 2 of March to the Sea, which is going to be in, I think it will drop on December 19th, actually. So
we're going to do it when he basically comes out of his rabbit hole at Savannah.
Yeah.
For the 21st of December, when he presents the gift of the city of Savannah
to President
Abraham Lincoln.
And he also gives him Legos.
He gives him Legos. He probably would have returned those that day after Christmas. Lincoln probably would have returned Savannah. Who the hell wants Savannah? Good morning, Allie Biddles, the other half of the Alley.
Team A, or Team Alley. Gabe said, "Where's cousin Eddie?"
I get that.
You know, I just thought of something. Judson Kilpatrick is the cousin Eddie of this. March to the Sea.
Explain.
I don't know. I just kind of thought like, oh, he's kind of like the cousin Eddie.
I know he's about the vacation. I know what he's talking about. I'm just teasing, but
yeah.
But if you think so,
in a way, I don't know.
Oh, okay. If you say
he
so.
would be the guy getting drunk all the time, right, and showing up and being annoying, but somehow he always comes through to save the day.
Kilpatrick? Well, maybe we need like a Butterfield in the March to the Sea.
I know.
To set up the old barn somewhere along Milledgeville.
Barn.
Exactly.
It was a moving bang barn as they went.
It probably was. It was exactly what it was. The Land Shark. Speaking of Land Shark, we called the Land Sharks. So I'm drinking Land Shark beer in honor of this March to the Sea, and I will tell you, this is glorified urine right here. I had to swallow this one down. That is not good beer at all. It's a bad beer. Of course, I'm gonna drink out of my Mary Surratt glass because. My throat's a little tight with the zipper, so I have to go with the Ciroc glass, Too soon?
Well, I went with Sherman. I thought you would go with your I Dream Up a Brighter Atlanta book.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it. I just grabbed the first one I saw today. It what?
I expected more.
No, I never said that to me before, but, it was, no, I don't know, I thought, you know what, you're right. Okay, you're right. But,
Joseph said that there wasn't anything there, meaning Georgia, which we did talk about in the podcast, that there was no resistance because the AOT was a tad busy, and that's right. They're up in Franklin's.
Yeah, Jim brings up a good point. Judson Kilpatrick is Anderson Cooper's great-great-grandfather. Do you know that?
No, that's interesting.
Yeah. I don't know why I heard that before somewhere. That's pretty cool. It's a good little history for you right there.
Yeah. And Sharita said it was mostly rural area from what I understand, and Hood was up in Tennessee. Yeah, like Sherman's basically going through what is a lot of farmland.
Well, Georgia's still the same way. I mean, you've been in Georgia, haven't you?
Yeah, many times.
Yeah.
Driven through it many times.
Ooh. I went a couple times, but when I was there for the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, back when we had professional football here in New England, we went to Kennesaw, and then we went through the whole area, and a lot of it's still rural. I mean, most of it, most of the area between Kennesaw in Atlanta and just north of that is still this is some like subdivisions and tattoo parlors and strip clubs and the usual Georgia stuff. The rough and ready of Georgia, but it's a lot of rural stuff. So what was smart about him though, as you mentioned in the thing, is he had that census map, and he would find out exactly where all the supplies were.
Yeah, the richest farmland. So
we were listening this morning. We were listening this morning about the podcast, and it still amazes me that the Confederates did not take the opportunity to hit Sherman when they were split up, when they were spread out like that. Well, because they had no supplies, they had no communication, they were sitting ducks, and they just
that's because the Army of Tennessee is up, they're away from them. That's where they felt they needed to go, and I think Sherman knew that. And that's why, like, the only time that they really got worried was when Howard's right wing was kind of making this march towards Macon to make them think that they were going to go there. And he had his lines spread pretty thin. And that's when he was like, if they could defeat us, it could be here. But like I said in the podcast, Howard amazingly does not run from that.
No, I thought because of the Twitter that every single time he was like a cat, whenever there's a loud noise, he ran, right?
Yeah.
That's how it was.
Yeah.
But surprisingly, definitely surprisingly, he ended up going up there. But I think if the Confederates had offered a little more resistance, I think if at that point it was fait accompli, the war was over. It was just they were running out the clock at that point. After Atlanta, there was nothing the Confederates were going to do. It was done. So it was just basically trying to stall it out. But maybe that was part of it. Hood going up to Tennessee to kind of draw some of Sherman's army up there still doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense, I guess, when they probably should have taken that and maybe hooked up Hood's army with Lee and try to strengthen Lee at Petersburg against Grant, because I had to have thought, whatever you want to call it, from freezing, that they knew eventually that Sherman's plan was to connect with Grant. It
Yeah.
had to have been, right?
They would have. I think they probably would have figured that out. But like the Confederacy is in its death throes by that point. Ryan said, there's a few comments here actually. I found out about Griswold when I went into a deep dive after watching series 1 of Hell on Wheels. The star carries a Griswold, which I hadn't heard of. Cult ripoff produced by a Connecticut chap who went south in the 1830s. Hell on Wheels is one of my favorite shows, and Colin Bohannon is amazing. He's the lead character, and he's actually a Confederate, but he is like the best character on the show. It's actually the Union guys that are the real assholes on the show, which is funny.
I watched like 2 episodes, then I tuned out.
You gotta get more than that because it gets really good.
Like the first couple episodes were fun because it was Civil War-ish. Then it turned into, I forget why, but I'm like, this is getting a little boring. I'm gonna take a break from this. I never went back to it, but but Allie's right. John Bell Hood was like peace and went to Tennessee. He's not the first guy to go up to Tennessee and start drinking. That's for damn sure.
Ryan said Pleasant J. Phillips is on a lot of top 10 worst rebel generals because of Griswoldville. Yeah, that was sad. Hey, Jim's in Gettysburg and we're not.
Yeah, it's awfully nice of him to mention that. Hopefully it's raining there.
Sharita said,
I'm kidding.
He's gonna go see Howard, hopefully.
Oh, was he going to see Tony Montana?
Yeah, Howard's
Don't
high
forget,
horse.
Jim, your homework assignment is to take a picture of the horse at OO and tell us he's not high, because he definitely is. No question.
Sharita says Georgia hasn't changed because of the March to the Sea. And Joseph said, well, Schofield was right when he convinced Cox that Nashville would give more adventure, more fighting anyhow. And Allie said, yeah, John Bell Hood was like peace and went on his little trip to Tennessee. And Amelia's on watching us. Hey, Amelia. And Allie just said Hood did want to hook up with Lee's army, I believe. I remember listening to a podcast and they mentioned that he wanted to go through Nashville and then up to Petersburg, if I'm not mistaken, but it hasn't.
Yeah, I know what she's talking about, but that's not confirmed. That's that he was wanted to do. I mean, that's probably what they were going to do, but there was no like game plan of how that was going to happen. It just seemed that's kind of an unusual route to do. I mean, I realized they went to Tennessee to pull some of Sherman's guys away. I get that. Well, they probably should have just gone northeast and just headed somewhere in there, because they still could have pulled some of his guys away if they went toward Virginia, right? Yeah. They could have gone to Carolina, South Kakalaki, somewhere in that area, and they could have pulled some guys, and they could have been a little more. I've heard that before. I just don't know how logical that was, but they didn't. At that point, there was nothing logical anyway. They were all trying to save their own asses at that point. The whole thing was over.
So they're in their death throes by that point, and what else are they going to do? And like Sherman, like you said, he encounters very little resistance other than some more guerrilla stuff as the march goes on. Like you mentioned the burnt bridge in the podcast, where he burnt that person's house, and that's basically what he did. Like towards the end, he's encountering trees cut down and put over roads to slow down his men. And then whenever that happened, he just like, as the march went on, Sherman seemed to get more angrier. And it was really the torpedo incident.
Well, it was the landmines. I mean, that's what pissed him off. I mean, he was, oh, hey, Amelia. Pat and her attorney checks in. But but Sherman, I mean, I don't know what he expected, though. I mean, of course he was going to get guerrilla warfare in that march because they had no other army to stop him. They have 15-year-old kids and old men trying to attack him. But what pissed him off were those landmines, the torpedoes. It did. And then it turned into, we catch your guy, we're going to hang you, and you cut the shit out. And that's exactly what happened.
And Kilpatrick's men were being rounded up and killed in some instances by the Confederates as well. And like there was some pretty horrific incidents, I think, where they found their throats had been slit. And I mean, at that point, I know, guys like E.P. Alexander, we've talked about many, many times, a lot of these guys, Longstreet, they knew the war was over, but there was that famous "not yet," line from Longstreet, where a lot of these guys like Alexander wanted to go into the mountains and fight a guerrilla warfare for 20 years, and Lee finally said no, and to his credit, that it kind of ended it. But that's what they were left with, if you really think about it. It's ironic that, you have Sherman, who had no supply lines, but it was able to forage and supply himself going through Georgia. Yeah. Meanwhile, up north, Lee in Virginia
basically had no supplies whatsoever, going through Sutler Creek and going through that entire post-Petersburg thing to Appomattox.
Yeah.
And he basically ran out of food, ran out of stuff. And that's kind of why he gave it the old quit, you know? So it's kind of an interesting, I don't know, parallel maybe, if you want to call it that.
Well, the other parallel too is what Sherman is doing in Georgia is no different. And now it's on a larger scale than what Lee was doing, you know, a year prior in going into Pennsylvania, right? Like you said, it's a gigantic, part of it is a gigantic shopping trip. Like he's issuing similar orders. But the one big difference, which for some reason doesn't get mentioned a lot, is the fact that Lee is also rounding up, you know, escaped slaves, but also freed African Americans, and he's sending them back down south to be put into slavery.
That's something that doesn't get reported enough, especially the Gettysburg campaign.
No,
especially
and that's where people will, you know, go all over me about Sherman's march, how it was like he's a war criminal for it. He like burnt stuff, women were raped, all this other stuff. And then like I come back and say like this is no different than what Lee is doing. It's on a larger scale, but the one big difference is that Lee is rounding up slaves and freed African Americans, and he's sending them back down south. And that, like, for some reason, they shut up pretty quickly when I watched that argument.
Well, that's a whole lost cause thing. I mean,
oh yeah, it's like, oh right, there was that, which we're conveniently forgetting. You know.
Well, most, you know, the Civil War is basically it's just a group of campaigns, one after the other. That's all it ever was.
Yeah.
But you know, now we're going off topic again. So here we go now. Okay. But like the Gettysburg campaign was a gigantic shopping trip. It was to get take the war out of Virginia, go into Pennsylvania, stock up. He wanted to stay there as long as he could.
Yeah.
You know, these plans about how he was going to go attack Philly and attack New York, and you never know. It was never going to happen.
Well,
it was
that was generated
it
by
was
the
basically
press at the time, right?
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, why would you? Of course, you're going to think that, but you know, I mean, there was reports that Beauregard, I'm pronouncing his name correctly here, Beauregard, was supposed. The other part of the Gettysburg campaign people don't always realize was Beauregard was supposed to make a push at Washington while Lee was going to Pennsylvania to draw some of the Army of the Potomac away from Lee to spread them out a little bit. Beauregard never went. He just never did. He just didn't happen. So it just never happened. When they were trying to split, they would have had to split up their army a little bit to kind of protect Washington and have more of the AOP, you know, away from ultimately ended up being Meade. But I mean, it was just a supply. And you know what? And people argue all the time, and I get this on Twitter once in a while. Was Gettysburg a success for the Confederacy? As far as the battle goes, no, it wasn't. But the campaign was, because they were able to, you know, have 30 miles of wagons full of, you know, vegetables and fruit and horse stuff and meat, pigs and chickens and all that stuff, you know, all that, you know, Pop-Tarts, whatever you want, you know, back on there. But they got enough supplies to feed their army for the rest of 1863 when they probably wouldn't have. Yeah. And so if you look at it from that regard, it was successful. The battle wasn't. But the overall, if you believe the campaign was to resupply the army for the rest of the year, it was. And so, you know, people give me shit about that. I don't care, but that's what I think.
I get shit for Sherman all the time, and I get shit for Howard all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Although people are starting to come around to Howard a little bit more, which is nice to see. Joseph said 3 goals for Hood. 1, take Nashville and draw attention. 2, link up with Lee. And 3, move on Kentucky. Ryan said, no Carney mug. God, I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
It doesn't matter. You got ripped for it here anyway.
I know. Everybody knows I'm so stupid at pronouncing names and can't do it. I blame the fact I'm Canadian. So Ryan said, no Carney mug in the post yet, but I'm drinking Black Sheep Ale from Yorkshire. Nice. Mm-hmm. Awesome.
And Sharita, just so you know, I know it's Beauregard, but we call it Beauregard because of, well, you figure.
Yeah, it's a podcast.
It's a podcast thing. We call him Beauregard.
Yeah. And Joseph says, does know what ended up being the final decision from what those things he just listed. Ryan said there's a great novel about Griswoldville, exactly about the 14 and 60-year-old rebels fighting. And Allie said it probably didn't help Lee that the Union cavalry was right on their tail when they retreated from Petersburg. Shoes. Hi, Amy. And Jim said, you know, you're on the losing side of a war when you're forced to conscript young boys and old men.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it came down to.
And it was these militias that were from these towns that were having to go up against Sherman. And I think, like, the Griswoldville is one of the more, like, it's one of the things that kind of haunts me a little bit about the March to the Sea, just because of some of the accounts of the Union soldiers, like them finding 15-year-old boys that had been shot. And
Oh, younger than that too.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I mean, drummer boys being forced to fight, pick up the rifle.
Yeah.
You know, and this is some of the old. I remember there was one story I read where there was a drummer boy going to pick up a rifle, and older guy says, "Put the rifle down. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it." The
Yeah.
kid did and got shot and killed.
Yeah.
It was begging him not to do it, saying, "I don't care. Don't do it." And so,
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what it was. But yeah, the Home Guard, was it Georgia, Louisiana, Florida Home Guard?
Yeah.
Were the ones defending that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But yeah, but Ryan's right. It was fought over shoes. That's right. They had a big Nike outlet at the Gettysburg Outlet Mall.
Legos.
Yeah, that's why he had a Lego.
Or the Lego factory on Little Round Top in Culps Hill that they were trying to protect.
It's almost at Christmas time. It's almost a big time of the year in Legoland, you know.
The Confederates don't want to give the
We
kids
should try to make a
Legos.
petition to change the name of Gettysburg to Legoland. Think they would do it?
Legoland. You know what Lego should do is
What?
they do all these different special Lego sets, right? You know, I know they've got one for like the Lincoln Memorial, all that. They should do Civil War monuments that you can build out of Lego.
Yeah. Jonathan Yingling was the best last name of all time. He's right. He talks about Ball's Bluff. General Stone was incarcerated at Lafayette, New York Harbor, the same where he was the engineer for the Statue of Liberty, which is absolutely true. And I love the Charles Stone story. I mean, I do.
Mm-hmm.
I just love the fact that this guy gets blamed, right? Goes to jail, and they make him pay for his own rail line ticket to go to jail. That's the insult right there, you know.
I know, and he's, you know.
Yeah,
By the way,
Jordans.
about going off topic, Jonathan, and this to everyone watching it, if you've got questions about any of our previous episodes or just want to drop some random Civil War thing to talk about in this, that's totally fine, because we constantly go off the rails. As
You want
much
to talk about
as Darren
Kearney
says, let's go back onto what we talked about, because I seem to always steer us away from that.
Yeah, you do. You have the attention span of a fly. If you want to talk about Kearney or Heth, or you want to talk about the Cairo, or you want to talk about
Caro.
Meager.
You got shit over that last week.
Yeah, I did. And you were the one. You know what?
I think that was Leonard who brought it up, or Gabe.
Somebody ripped me on it.
Caro.
I mean, honestly, you read so much, you pick up the news. I can't give you shit for Heth or Meager, although you should know better from Meager. I can't let you off the hook for that one. That's a logical one. I mean, how many videos have you seen on Antietam when they talk about Mar? Didn't you wonder where this Meager guy was? Who was this Mar guy?
I don't know.
That's okay. It's okay. That's what we're here to do. We're here to educate, right?
Canadian. Ryan's replying to Jim. Napoleon, Hitler, Hal Frederick the Great kidnapped foreigners to fight for Prussia. Ali B. They needed to get the new Jordans.
Oh, God, tell me about it, the new Jordans. That's probably what it was.
Yeah.
You know, probably the Jordan, the originals, probably
Legos
back.
is what it was fought over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jonathan said off topic is cool. Ryan said the photos of Stone, Loring, etc. in Fez and ludicrous amounts of gold braidwood in Egypt. Yeah, that's right. Stone went to Egypt after to build up.
Yeah, he was
army
basically
there.
exercised. 1864 he was kicked out of the army. You know, gets out of jail and gets booted. It's funny he gets arrested, and they go, "Why are you arrested?" I don't know. You know,
Yeah, and he's
"Why
getting arrested by his best friend.
Yeah,
And he's like, "What the fuck, dude?" Like, and the guy's like, "I don't know. I'm just following orders right now," which orders had come down from Stanton to McClellan. And then poor
McClellan tried to get. I mean, he wanted to duck that because he was going to get
Oh
blamed for
yeah,
that too.
he was noping the fuck away from
Say
that.
what you want, McClellan. I know we waxed poetic about McClellan a few weeks ago, and I don't know if Jen's on or not, but if she is, you want to cover her ears on this one. But he did his best to deflect away from him, and that's the about McClellan. It's nothing his. You know, when after Barr says, you know, my fault. It was all my fault. You know, this. Yeah. McClellan never said that. Never his fault. It's okay if you make a mistake.
Yeah. Your internet's really choppy right now, Darren.
Jen, I apologize. So.
Your internet was really choppy. Can you repeat that?
Is it?
Yeah.
Let me see what. Repeat that. Hold on. I guess
Okay. Okay.
and you know, so brilliant it can't be repeated. So it was just so good. You can't,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, Mr. Can you do it again? All I was saying was that McClellan was a guy who was never to blame for anything. And so, unlike Lee at Gettysburg, who took the blame, he never did. And that's the one thing you can say about McClellan. And if that means Jen's mad, Jimmy Crackcorn.
I don't
Jen,
think
Jimmy
she's on
Crackcorn,
here.
you know. I know she's probably out running somewhere.
Yeah, Joseph just said, I'm going to put you guys on the TV. I'm working on an 8x4 diorama of Franklin for the anniversary. I'll send you guys pics. Awesome. Yeah, that would be great.
God. Us on the TV, huh?
Yeah.
Hope you don't
Yeah,
crack the
Roger, I
screen.
let him know his screen was frozen. His internet is really shitty right now for some reason.
Oh, who knows? Someone's probably streaming something in this house, you know? Is it still frozen?
No, it's not as clear as what it was.
Well, maybe I actually physically froze since it's friggin' 30 degrees out here.
Well,
today.
I don't know why the hell you're sitting outside.
Because it's outside. It's nice.
I know. I understand. Jonathan said that sounds fun. Franklin is so underrated. Yeah, Franklin is one of those underrated battles for sure that doesn't get talked about a lot, it's absolutely horrific.
I wonder if Franklin, I mean, obviously, I'm going to say I wonder. I think if Franklin were fought before Atlanta, I think it might have been different, but it seemed like it was after the fact. It just seemed like everything post Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
it just seemed like we said before, the die was cast, the war was over, and it was just running out the clock at that point. It's too bad, it's too bad a guy like Claiborne got killed there, though.
Oh, yeah.
For example.
Because I think Claiborne would have been, like, I know Claiborne had that whole, like, emancipation for the slaves drawn up and all that, but I think he would have been, and he said some stuff during the war he's very much for the Confederacy, but I don't think he understood what they were fighting for. But I think Claiborne would have been like a James Longstreet. He would have come around in the end and said, okay, we lost, but we need to get along with these people. I think he would have been a scallywag.
He probably would have been like a John Mosby, or like a Longstreet, or a guy who probably would have come around to the Union side. People forget Mosby was Grant's campaign manager for president.
Yeah,
people don't realize that.
There was a whole bunch of them that came around.
Where are the lead people ripping on Mosby, like they do Longstreet about that? By the way,
yeah,
funny how that works, huh?
I don't know. Lee is definitely not my favorite general at all.
Which one, Robert E?
Yeah. No.
I don't know.
John.
You probably pronounce it wrong if it was a John.
I probably would. I'm shocked I can actually, bumble my way through the day and speak properly. I usually don't. Ryan said, hey, did someone say Kearney, inventor of the divisional patch, inventor of the Kearney Cross, inspiration for the MOH, richest man in the Union Army, rode with reins in his teeth so he could wield a saber.
He probably had like a big Cadillac. Can you imagine him like a tripped out car rolling in? He would have
been a pimp. I think.
Probably would have cruising into Chantilly. Probably that's probably what got him actually at Chantilly was his car. He had that big light show going, the track of the Confederate artillery. That's probably what did it actually.
Pulls up to the bank barn in the Cadillac.
Oh, that's exactly what happened.
He gets out. He's got the big pimp hat on.
Yeah, some pimp probably gunned
him
down.
With the Corps insignia on it.
Someone probably pronounced his name wrong. He got mad and got in a fight and got shot. Nobody calls me chicken.
Joseph said about Franklin, it was the final bid to hold on for just a bit longer for Franklin.
It was, and that's the sad part about it. Is those dudes who got killed at Franklin or Sailor's Creek or the places like that, when the whole thing was completely over. And like I said before, you wonder how many future politicians or inventors or poets or champions of industry died in the Civil War, and how this country today could be different. But anything after Atlanta it's just really too bad. It's so
which
unnecessary.
is sad because it's still part of the Civil War, right? And it all factors into it.
According to some people on Twitter who I read, the Civil War is still going.
It is.
They just
I was the crazy one at the family Thanksgiving a few years ago.
No,
not me. The Canadian Thanksgiving, when everybody was talking about what was happening in the US. I won't get into the details, but then my one uncle was like, "Can you explain to us? Because I really like your theory on this, Mary." And then I had to explain it, and it was like,
To Roger, his internet and BC have something in common. They both suck. Hey, Roger. My internet's from 1988, which is the last year Notre Dame won anything. So that's probably what my problem is. So that's okay.
Actually, Brian did invent some hashtags for us. Hashtag Team Carney spelt the right way, and then Carney spelt what I would consider phonetically with a C.
I will say though, and I'll give you credit for this, Fincher. Okay, is when you said meager, I knew who you were talking about. I didn't know who you were talking about.
Did you?
I did. I did. You're
Meager.
talking about meager attacking the sunken road, which we talked about many times. I knew you were talking. I know your game. I see. I know what you're all about.
Just wondering what else I'm going to butcher in the future.
You still can't say Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Despite the intense training program I put you through, you still can't say Massachusetts.
No, I never will be able to. It's because I'm Canadian.
We just like 2 days ago we talked about this. We split up and everything.
I know. Well,
you just can't do it. That's fine. Everybody has their cross to bear.
I blame the ADD. Joseph says there's actually a lot more to the campaign than just Franklin. It just goes to show how important it was when paired with Columbia and Spring Hill. And Jim says the farm office at the Carter House in Franklin is said to be the most bullet-ridden building that still survives from the Civil War. Yeah. When they open the door and let you go in on a tour on a bright day, the light streams through the bullet holes into the floor and walls. I've seen pictures.
That picture is awesome. I had that picture as my wallpaper on my work computer for the longest time. That how the Carter House in Franklin, where it just like the light hits it, there's all the bullet holes. And I hope it's all legit. I'm sure it is, but it's just a cool image, and just you know how that must have been. How the house stands up is a miracle if you think about it. Like you see like the Bryant barn in Gettysburg, and it's got a bunch of bullet holes in the side of it too. There's not that many, but that Carter House is amazing. That's pretty cool.
I am looking forward to visiting Franklin post-COVID.
Post-COVID, we'll see when the hell that's going to be.
Wow. I'm thinking it's going to be next year, probably March. I'm thinking. I hope. One can hope, one can dream.
And you're also been waiting for the Indians for the last 50 years too, so we'll see how that goes. I haven't mentioned the Indians to you in a while.
I can't insult any of your teams because I like them all.
I'm turning you around to the good side, the dark side. You finally dumped that horrific Ohio State. I
know. Yep. BC all the way now. I needed it.
Well, they'll never disappoint you. Hey, it's okay. Those kids actually go to class, so we'll take it.
I know. Ryan mentions that Cleveland is the first president not to have been in the Civil War. His opponents like to remind people of that one. He paid the fee to have someone else fight. Ironically, the Union probably needed the cash more than the manpower. It's probably true.
Wait a second. I know for a fact that John Adams was not in the Civil War. So I'm going to call BS on that one.
Bullshit.
If you thought about it for half a second, you're like, wait a second.
Caroline, she said mayor question mark about my Ohio State thing. Yeah, I kind of dropped Ohio State.
Yeah, she's seen the light. She's seen the light.
Reasons.
Yeah, Ohio State, they have unlike the Cleveland Browns and Bengals, they have no salary cap at Ohio State, so that's okay.
I still love college football, and so whatever anybody wants to like is their thing. I just wanted a new team.
Well, I love Columbus, Ohio. Just got to spend a couple hours in jail there. It was a good little town.
Yeah, let's see who. That won't get any questions on this live. Darren was
doesn't matter. Wrong people, the wrong time. Convicted, never convicted. No.
Were you getting caught going to the old Bang Barn?
No, God, no. No. But yeah, so this one, it's too. Speaking of Columbus and speaking of that, I was supposed to be in Columbus in a few weeks. I was supposed to go to the Ohio State game with my friend Dave. We were supposed to go to the game this year, and it didn't happen, which is too bad. Even though Michigan probably would have lost by 1,000 probably this year.
It's still fun. I would love to actually go to the Michigan Ohio State game sometime, just because it's such a tradition. Just the rivalry between them. Mike said, Ohio State, nice marching band though. Yeah, they do have quite the marching band. Allie B, jail. You have me intrigued now.
I was the wrong crowd. It was like an hour. It wasn't trust me. It wasn't a tri-state killing spree, but it was just being. Oh gosh, stupid. You know what? I don't know how I say the stupid shit I do is beyond me. I'm telling you.
Allie K said, "What happens in Columbus stays in Columbus." Joseph, Rough and Ready's favorite customer. Right to you.
Big Ten bands. You know, Allie, I'm surprised. What happened to Minnesota against Michigan a few weeks ago, by the way? I was going to mention that to you. For some reason, she has a weird anti-Boston College thing going, Allie. I don't know why. I don't know. I mean, it's not the Minnesota thing as anything. I mean, we beat them in hockey a few times. That's about it. I don't think they've ever played them in football, but not that I can remember anyway.
There are some good things to come out of Ohio, like Sherman, Grant, Sheridan.
It was. I was actually rooting for Minnesota against Michigan. I thought it'd be cool to see them do well. You know.
Now who's off topic?
I know. But it's a curse of Minnesota sports. It's true. Yeah. You know.
Ryan says, actually, there were a number of former presidents alive during the Civil War. Van Buren at 80 was the only pure Union Lincoln man. That's true. Mm-hmm. Allie K, my brother went to Notre Dame.
Oh, it's all right. Allie, you know what? Like, he probably didn't have the SAT scores to get into BC, but it doesn't make him a bad person. It's fine. It's fine. You know, no, Notre Dame academically, you know what? The thing about it, though, is I know we're off topic big time. We'll go back. But BC, Michigan, Notre Dame, Stanford, Vanderbilt, there are certain schools that you have to respect because the academics of it all. The kids actually go to class. But the Alabamas, Ohio States, Clemson's, you know, whatever. But
we should really do next year for football season. We should really do an episode about college football. Like we did. Yeah. Like we did for the NFL.
Oh, yeah. We could do that.
Because I actually prefer college football in some ways over NFL, so I think that would be fun.
It depends. I like both, although it feels like there's no NFL season this year.
I know. That's why we have this podcast and the Civil War to keep us occupied and keep us sane.
I think Sherman would have been a good college football fan.
Yeah, he would have. He probably would have cheered for LSU though.
Well, don't forget he was the first superintendent. Yeah. I love that story though. You know, he's after he fails out in banking, after he washes out of the Army the first time, he goes and he becomes the first superintendent of a military school that would become LSU. So it's so ironic if you think about it that he would be in charge of a military school in the South. I mean, and looking at history, it's just one of those things just really, really interesting to think about, you know.
Well, the interesting thing about Sherman being at LSU is he always liked the South, and that's where he wanted to call home. He hated Ohio. He didn't want to live there. And the sad thing about it is if you read the letters he's writing to Ellen just before secession happened, you can see he's got this head buried in the sand approach, that he's just ignoring it. Like, I think he knows in the back of his mind, I mean, judging from what he said to his friend Boyd, which you talked about, that letter that he wrote in the podcast to his friend Boyd, who was a Southerner. You know, he's writing to his wife Ellen and saying, okay, yeah, we'll bring you down at this time. But then the letters start to get a little bit more, I don't know what's going to happen. And Sherman witnessed quite a few things down there that made him really angry when secession started happening. And another thing about Sherman is he did not vote in the election either. And he didn't want Lincoln to be president because he knew what would happen. Like, he was like, that's going to be civil war. And so the one thing he witnessed is, so Secretary of War at the time was shipping all this like ammo down south in preparation because they knew there was going to be a war. So some of it went to LSU. And Sherman witnessed them scratching off US Army off the side of these ammos. And it dug him to the core. And that's why he said what he did to Boyd, like, you have no idea what you're going up against. It will be a long drawn out affair. And I think he was one of the few that knew that. Stonewall Jackson thought the same thing.
Well, a lot of them did. I think it's funny, as Amelia talked about how she'd be an LSU fan. I like LSU. That's a good school. But you know what? A good program anyway, athletics and all that. But it's funny, like, you think about the fact that he, what if he was, you know, the old game, what if Sherman was at Gettysburg and he was fighting against Hayes's Louisianans, who were called the Tigers, who ultimately were how LSU changed their nickname. The school's called the Tigers because that exact brigade. You know, it's pretty cool. That'd be a fun podcast, is talk about Civil War college teams that are named after Civil War related things. There's a whole bunch of them.
There's an NHL team, the Columbus Blue Jackets.
That's right.
And did you know the Calgary Flames used to be the Atlanta Flames?
I've never heard that. As a longtime NHL fan, Mary, thanks for letting me know. You know, if you cut the bread before you sell it, you'll make more money. But that's true, though. Yeah, the Atlanta Flames were named that. That was a cool name. You know, the Atlanta Flames. You know, that give them credit for that. By the way,
I do. Yeah, no, they like to have fun with it. It's like during the Olympics, there was a shirt that was sold that had Sherman on it and said Sherman, Atlanta's original torchbearer.
Yeah, they love Sherman down there. We mentioned in the podcast, and when I was down there for the football game a few years ago with our friend Bill, the shit we caught, and it was a lot of it was fun. We just you get a few beers and you turn into a dick sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I went to the Claiborne statue at Ringgold Gap, shockingly.
Yeah, there you go, Ringgold Gap.
Yeah, there we go. And I had my Sherman shirt on, so I took a picture next to the statue, and I posted on Twitter, and I said, "Somebody's laughing right now besides me, and it's not Sherman." He would have been pissed. But in that same spot, there's like this marker for the Atlanta campaign, and then there's this Claiborne statue, which I'm sure Claiborne would have been like, that's the most hilarious thing in the world. And Sherman just would have been like, I'm not having any of that shit with that guy.
But there's a lot of maybe college football. There's Tennessee Volunteers. There's obviously Ole Miss Rebels.
Yep.
Michigan Wolverines, theoretically.
Yep. Custer.
North Carolina Tar Heels is a Civil War name. LSU Tigers we talked about.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them.
Yep. And cool. At LSU, they have some cannons there. And I think those cannons are from Vicksburg, I think.
Really?
Yeah. Seem to remember that from a blog post I wrote a few years ago about Sherman's life in the South before the Civil War.
Yeah, you're right though, because he wanted to stay. He considered the South, Ohio guy. He wanted to be in the South.
He hated Ohio. Like he absolutely.
Everyone, you know what though? I hate Ohio too. I'm sorry, I fuck Ohio.
We have Ohio listeners.
I like them.
His friend Roger.
Roger's not from Ohio. He's from Rhode Island. He's from Rhode Island. He's a Rhode Island guy. He just went out there to work. So Roger's different. He's from Zanesville.
Amelia has an answer for us about. Remember, we asked her about the torpedo from the invention thing last week. She said, turns out the torpedo people were two groups at first. Gabriel Rains earlier in the war was focusing on battery activated, then victim activated land torpedoes in the new Army Torpedo Bureau. It's amazing what they come up with. They were first used at Yorktown in 1862 and weren't uniformly embraced by all Confederates. Longstreet lobbied Richmond to ban them as inhumane. Later, Edgar Singer and his Mason friends, Darren would have definitely joined the cast of characters, in Port Lavaca, Texas, worked on naval torpedoes through the Bureau of Engineers sent to Mobile, Charleston, and Richmond. And everyone was cool with those because waged against naval ships, not just to kill or maim soldiers. In November 1864, the CSA merged them into one secret corps. The March to the Sea ones were part of the Rains Group, which operated out of Augusta Arsenal and Confederate Powder Works. Thank you for coming to my Civil War technology TED Talk. Thank you, Amelia, for finding that out. That's really cool.
Wow, excellent.
That's neat.
Yeah, Joe's right. Volunteers predate the war. Actually, Wolverines does too. That's another one. Wolverines comes from a nickname, I guess, Ohio. This is about Toledo, Ohio.
Yep.
Another little slice of heaven. Basically, Toledo, I think there was some sort of fight over territorial, whether it was Michigan or Ohio and so on.
Yeah, that's it's right on the border.
That's where Wolverines comes from. So that's pre-Civil War too. But it's a lot of cool names though. But yeah, that'd be a fun thing to sit there and study it though and see how that is, Yeah.
Ryan said John Tyler went south. Millard Fillmore was in the Union Army for a while, but he was a Copperhead. House attacked when he failed to drape his house in black crepe when Lincoln died. Franklin Pierce was a close friend of Jeff Davis, who was in his cabinet, very much Southern sympathizer. And James Buchanan. Ooh, James Buchanan. Talk about a puppet.
Yeah.
Like he was he basically shut down once secession was happening. He was like, I don't want to have to deal with this.
Well, I mean, I think that was happening anyway. That I think the John Brown thing really got the spark of that. That's why Melville called him the meteor. I think a lot of it.
Yeah. Caroline, I'm much more interested in Lincoln in the Civil War too.
I'm definitely with that. Yeah, almost constant comes from Arthur. Yeah, I'd heard that. And it's cool that they fight it. They play at Camp Randall Stadium, which is the site of Camp Randall, where the Wisconsin guys trained for the Civil War too. There's a lot of good stuff. You look back and looking back on the history. The half of the stuff we're talking about is off the top of our heads, and some of the stuff we're going to be wrong once in a while. So yes, I realize the Tennessee Volunteers predated that, but there's a lot of them that do that. So it's kind of fun to do.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure Fighting Irish is like worthless names that doesn't font anything. So
Joseph has a picture with his desk. I'm assuming Sherman's desk from the academy. I look like a giddy child. I take pictures next to historical items, and I look like I'm all like, yay, I'm here.
I've seen them.
Yep, I go a little bit crazy.
You almost make it all the way to the top of the desk too. You're pretty close to the desk level.
Fucker. Sharita, I think Sherman became good friends with Hood post-war. Yeah, I've read that before too. Ryan says they call football rugby and excessive child safety gear. And Joseph confirmed the friendship. Sherman invited Hood to dinner in St. Louis, and the next year, Hood hosted Sherman in New Orleans. That's kind of cool. Just the friendships that come out of this afterwards. You know, like even Sherman and Joseph Johnston.
Well, that was a good. I mean, that one is interesting because you know, just because it goes into the whole the funeral with Sherman's funeral, with taking the hat off and the pneumonia and all the stuff that happened with that. But I think there's a mutual respect that comes out of these guys that I think you know they both realized. I mean, a lot of them knew each other from West Point or knew where their background or knew of them, and you basically have a situation where you're fighting for whatever you're fighting for, and I think there is a. I don't think a lot of these guys looked at the cause or anything like that. They were just fighting for what they fought in.
I'm actually a little shocked by Hood and Sherman considering those letters they wrote to each other, which were basically like "F-U, SMD," like. You know, after
that was fun doing that texting.
Yeah, that was good.
Years ago we did that.
Those are some of the best correspondence I think to come out of the Civil War because Sherman's really, really nice, and then Hood is really nice in his response until the last paragraph when he totally.
And Sherman loses it. He just
and then Sherman's like, "Fuck you."
He's like easily shaken, you know. But I think there's a lot of that stuff. I mean, these guys are regular. I mean, they're people. I mean, we've said we were talking with John the other night. We were talking about how important it is to kind of focus on the soldiers and work your way up and read the diaries and stuff like that, because it's easier to really get an idea, an understanding of the whole thing than reading these West Point guys down, because they're a different breed. I mean, they are.
Oh, yeah, they are.
They're no different. I mean, they read, you know, Jomini and all these guys that we talked about in the podcast, and they're wired a certain way.
Yeah.
These guys are the ultimate professional type soldiers versus these other guys who just, you know, these landowners, these barkeeps, these farmers who are fighting because they thought it would be something to do and get out of the state for a little while, and they got themselves into something they never realized what they got themselves into.
But you do have some officers though, or some commanders that aren't West Point educated. Like,
right.
Like Claiborne, like he's a completely different breed from a lot of the others in the Confederate Army and even the Union Army. Like he puts himself out in situations that like ultimately got him killed, right? But Reynolds was the same way too. Like Reynolds was out with his men, and he's a West Point educated guy as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you look at obviously Bowdoin College has got, you know, it's got Howard, it's got Chamberlain. I mean, they got a lot of these kind of interesting little schools that came out. But again, there's the Grants, the Shermans. You know, there is a certain type of different wiring in some of these guys. Yeah. And it's cool to study them. I'm not, you know, saying that something wrong with it. I'm just saying that it's the common guy who rises up.
Oh, yeah.
Like the guys we talked about with John, the Charles Tilden, 16th Maine, David Ireland, 137th New York. Guys like that, Colville, 1st Minnesota. Those are the guys that's more fun interesting to read about. Yeah. Because it's more of a learning by doing type thing. And they did the best they could. Even a Hancock, for example, even a guy like that, he's an interesting study. Oh, yeah. I love the story, the Hancock story in Antietam, when he comes from the 6th Corps, he's taken over, he's got his pistol raised, and he's threatening to shoot people who are rifling the Confederate dead. Yeah. And I love the fact that after he had the 1st Minnesota basically slaughtered, that he had the balls to show up at the reunion.
No, that is crazy.
That is stones.
Yeah.
And he got up there and he basically said, because he spoke and he says, you know what, I understand you're mad, but I had to do what I had to do. Yeah. And that's you got to respect that. You just do, you know.
I mean, I like studying all aspects of the Civil War, and I'm getting more, thanks to you, I'm getting more into looking at more of the soldiers. That's why I enjoyed Southern Storm so much, because he's looking at it from more of a soldier's perspective, and that's why Trudeau's book about Gettysburg is good as well. The other really good book to learn a little bit more about what the soldiers were going through is The War for the Common Soldier by Peter Carmichael from Gettysburg College. It's a really, really good book.
No, he's a good guy too. The one I always talk about is the Abner Small book.
Yep.
The Road to Richmond. In my opinion, it's the best first-hand account diary ever written about the Civil War. And God, I mentioned, I forget royalties. I've mentioned it so many friggin' times in this stupid thing.
Not E.P. Alexander?
No, he did his fighting for the Confederacy is pretty good, firing those balls all over the place, you know. But he certainly did. He did a good job. But the Small one is really, you got to read that. You just got. If you haven't read Abner Small's diary, you have to read it.
I need to.
It's mandatory reading. I mean, we talk about mandatory. We talk about Confederates in the Attic by Tony Horwitz, right?
Yeah.
We talk about that. There's a bunch of them, but I think the Small Diary is the best one. It's up there with anything else I've ever read because it brings it down to such a personal level. You really understand what these guys were going through, and it's rare.
Maybe we should do that as a book club.
Maybe. But we talk about like Grant's memoirs and Sherman's memoirs and Longstreet's memoirs. That's fine and well and good, but all they're trying to do is have a big circle jerk with each other and talk about how wonderful they are.
Yeah,
that's what they do.
And
right?
too, it's there was a book I heard about I watched listened to Gary Edelman at Lookout Mountain yesterday. It's about 2 years old, but you can find it on YouTube on Battlefield Trust, and I really recommend checking it out. But one of the people he's with mentions that they had this book called General Grant and the Rewriting of History, and it talks about how Grant in his memoirs is doing a little bit of rewriting. And he really
a little bit,
actually a lot. He does that at Lookout Mountain with Joseph Hooker, but the other thing he does too is like Grant basically when Rosecrans is kind of kicked out, Rosecrans told him what his plan was. Like Rosecrans never planned to leave Chattanooga, but then Grant takes credit for it. He basically used this Rosecrans plan.
Well, we were doing the Chickamauga podcast. I mean, Rosecrans fought so hard at Chickamauga to protect Chattanooga. Of course he was going to stay in Chattanooga. That was the whole point of it. It would have made no sense for him to sit there and walk after that battle to walk away from it.
The administration didn't see it that way. And we're going to get more. I don't want to get too far down the road with that because that's one of the things we're going to talk about in our episode next week about the battles for Chattanooga, beginning with the Battle of Lookout Mountain. Caroline says she's a nutmegger. What is that?
Connecticut.
Okay. I think I knew
Which is up. Well, I'll leave that alone.
Roger, I make
There is no state that creates better traffic than Connecticut, put it that way. I-95 going through New Haven and forget that. You'll bring a shaving kit, I'm telling you. You'll sit in traffic for hours going through fucking Connecticut.
Jim told the story about how the Tennessee Volunteers got their name. It's because number of troops from Tennessee who volunteered to fight during the War of 1812.
Right. Hi,
David. Joseph said, but fun fact, Wisconsin comes from Arthur MacArthur at Missionary Ridge. Jim said, Arthur MacArthur standing in the middle of the road at Franklin is also a great story as well. He shot multiple times, as Joseph says, stabs his attacker and limps to Nashville. What a stud. Allie said, if we're talking about freaking out over historical stuff, I was at Grant's cottage earlier this year and kind of freaked out over the pencils he wrote with, and the guy showing me around was very amused. Hey, Andrea's on. Hey, Pike.
Wow. This is a very big moment here. The Andrea Pike is signing on.
Yeah.
She actually got up early today. It's only, 11 o'clock.
She's another thing that has been a very positive thing to come out of this pandemic is her and I have become friends. I really like her.
She's awesome. She's
definitely one of my BFFs.
It's funny because we told the story before is Andrea and I were on one of these very, very serious Facebook Gettysburg pages. Oh, shut up. And so simply by liking something she wrote, I got banned.
When you got blocked the other day by some
and then someone wrote something to you on Twitter.
Yeah, they told me to shut up and take a post down.
Right. And you wrote some stupid response, and I liked it. And I got blocked for liking that, and you didn't get blocked, bro. So you guys have something in common now. But Andrea, yeah, you got me kicked off of one of the serious Facebook sites. One of the
Pike and I have
those ones,
common, including having the same type of sense of humor.
Yeah, no, she's really she's awesome.
She's
really
cool.
Is.
Joseph said Sherman actually helped to get Hood's reports into the records and tried to help him get paid big bucks for it when he lost it all. And Jim said Hood's post-war story is so tragic. When he and his wife died, they had 10 children who were left orphaned. Of which the oldest was a teenager when he died, or Hood died. There was an effort to raise money for them to help support the children. Mike said people in the Confederacy had qualms about planting mines in the Yorktown earthworks before the Union took them over in the Peninsula Campaign, thinking if it wasn't face-to-face combat, it was something like murder. The Union solved the issue by making captured Confederates dig them up, which is exactly what Sherman is going to do on his march to the sea. He brings up a bunch of captured Confederates and is like, you guys put these here, you get to dig them up.
Yeah, I mean,
people say that's one of the reasons he's a war criminal. But I mean, at the time, like if you're, and not 100% defending what he did, but at the time, imagine how angry he would have been to come across that young officer who had his like basically his foot blown off and his horse killed by that landmine on this road
You
they're
know,
walking
he's the
on.
one who said war is hell, right? The thing about that though is, and like, I get it, and you know, it's he did a lot of stuff that was kind of sketchy. I mean, he talked about how
yeah.
bombing Atlanta and killing civilians. I mean, he's no teetotaler either with this, and so the thing that I don't really understood about that, and he lost his mind about the torpedoes,
Mm-hmm.
and they were at least targeting soldiers, right?
Mm-hmm. But he still saw it at that time. He was like, if you're gonna fight me, face me on the field and don't do it
Yeah, I
this
mean,
way.
it was almost like domestic terrorism type thing, is what it really
Yeah.
was. But I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of worse stuff that went on than that. Fort Pillow comes to mind quickly.
Oh.
There's a lot of brutal things that happened in the Civil War that are 10 times worse than putting landmines down.
Oh yeah.
But I can see why he'd be mad, because that was actually a formidable. It was probably a military strategy, because torpedoes or landmines would have been a more formidable way to stop his army, and he didn't want to.
Yep.
He couldn't. He was going, what, 15 miles a day?
Yep.
Right, so he
50
really
miles a day.
couldn't
Yep.
stop, and he had to get there for Christmas because the big Savannah Christmas spectacular
Exactly.
was
He
going
had
to
to
happen.
give Lincoln. He had to give Lincoln Savannah, cotton, and Legos.
We had tickets to the Christmas, Disney on Ice show in Savannah, so we had to get there by
Exactly.
Christmas. So he had to keep moving.
Joseph says he's talking to the Chattanooga. Yeah, Joseph's actually going to be on the Chattanooga Chickamauga Roundtable next month. He was just replying to.
I think we're signed up for that, right?
We are. We will definitely.
Yeah. So Joe, we'll be in your audience. So
yeah,
we'll be checking that out. That'd be cool.
Ryan said Thomas Morley of Thomas Morley 17th Lancers, charge of the Light Brigade and 12th Pennsylvania Cavalry. You'd think he had learned his lesson, but some of these other rank stories are as interesting as the general stories. Yep, they are. Jim says John Ransom's Andersonville Diary is a must read.
Yeah, I think I have that, but I just haven't read it. It's in one of my 1,000 books I have,
Yeah.
but I definitely want to check that out too. Have you seen the movie Andersonville?
Nope.
You haven't seen that?
Nope.
Wow.
That's another one for movie night.
That's a good one, but it's good though. I think it was a made for TV movie, I think, but it's really brutal, and it talks about Henry Wirtz a lot, who I told you was buried right near Mary Surratt in Mount Olivet in Washington, D.C. And he's got that gravestone that says Confederate Martyr.
Yeah,
they put it right on there.
Weird. Andrea said, I wish George Thomas had written a memoir. The biographies available on him today are crap. I do agree with you, Andrea, about that. And the reason he didn't write a memoir is he died not too long after the Civil War. I think it was in 1870. But he was not too happy with how things, like just how he had been treated. He was not treated very well by Grant. I mean, I love Grant. He's a favorite, but the way he treats Thomas, and a lot of it's over because Thomas was from Virginia, but also because Grant and Sherman had this thing going on by the time Chattanooga rolled around where they were like, we want to take the victory. But then you have Hooker and Thomas that are basically having to clean up when Sherman messes up at Missionary Ridge. And then Hooker is just like, fuck what Grant's told me, I'm going to take this entire mountain. And he does. And then
Thomas had a future too. He could have been president someday. And you have to wonder.
He was the best the Union had. But
you have to wonder. I mean, we're just speculating. Who the frig knows? But you wonder if he was maybe a little intimidated by a George Thomas as far as future.
I think he absolutely was intimidated by him. I mean, like I said, to me, George Thomas is the best the Union had. Could George Thomas have done the March to the Sea? No. You had to have a personality like Sherman do that.
No, you need to be a ruthless killer, I mean, you do. Yeah. I mean, be honest. I mean, you were doing some. Nothing. I'm not going to sit here and say anything he was doing was really wrong. It was wartime, and what he did expedited the end of the war.
Yeah.
Sorry, Georgia, but it did. If that didn't happen, that war would have gone on for who knows how long, and how many more people would have died. But
he realized what needed to be done. The other thing with Thomas, why the biographies about him are not only few and far between, but they're not very good, is because Thomas's wife burned all of his papers after he died. So there's not really much.
Well, it's like the Booth stuff, just Asia burning all the papers. It's kind of unfortunate. But,
and Sheridan lost all his papers. There's a reason. You would think there would be more biographies about Sheridan, like there are about Grant and Sherman, because that's basically the trifecta that brings down the Confederacy. But there's not, because all of Sheridan's papers were lost during the Chicago fire.
It's funny how that is, but Allie, there is a movie. Yes, there's a movie. It's called Andersonville. I'm sure it's on Netflix or something. Check it. It's actually really, really good. It really shows the life of the people at Andersonville. Speaking of Sherman, by the way, one thing we didn't mention was his attitude towards Andersonville when he did his march to the sea.
You actually
Because
mentioned that on another episode.
I think I did. I forget
Yep,
which one to mention it, but I mean, I've looked.
Atlanta.
We talk. Oh, that's right. So we talked before about Sherman, about his treatment of the slaves at Ebenezer Creek that came later, that about 20 miles outside of Savannah. How he left them there, a lot of them drowned. He got caught by the Confederate cavalry. He left them there because he couldn't feed them, couldn't support them.
Mhm.
But you had to know he knew Andersonville was there, and he went right by it.
He
And
did.
I mean, he didn't go right. I mean, he was probably about 50 miles north of it,
Yeah.
realistically speaking. But you wonder, and I've always seen this as kind of a black mark on Sherman's career.
Mhm.
Was he could have liberated them? Did he need all 60 guys to make that march? 60,000 guys? Probably not.
Well,
He could have
I
taken.
mean,
He could have taken 10,000. He could have gone them down to Andersonville, liberated them, got them north, and you could have done it with 50. I'm just speculating, but it's a shame with the whole no soldier left behind thing. You know what I mean? That's a very strong military thing. If he knew that Andersonville was there, because I had to think he did. He had, because he had stragglers who were coming into his lines who escaped.
knew.
You know,
He knew, and
and
I'm
he
sure it was a
and
tough decision for him, though. You know, like that probably.
I know.
I think if you could
just
go back and if you could go and have beers with Sherman right now, like I think that would be a great question to ask him. He might say like, well, looking back and everything, like we've had how many, like 150 some years to look back at this and to praise or criticize or whatever. Who knows how, like if you looked back at Sherman now, if he would have said, well, yeah, I realize now I could have done that, but maybe at the time because it would have been the right wing, it would have been Howard's men that would have had to go do that, and Howard had more men.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, and again, this may be ignorance on my part, but yes, he couldn't take him with him. He couldn't take these dudes with him because they hadn't eaten. It would they had limited supplies, but he could have left some of his guys with them and just taken them north and just I don't know. Maybe I hate to think that he just said screw him, but it's kind of what he did, right?
Yeah.
And,
I mean,
but,
I think if you could ask him though, and the thing is, he's not here to give his opinion, right? I mean, I'm not defending what he did, but he's not here to give his opinion or to argue why he didn't do that. He might say like, well, yeah, I realize that was a mistake I made. Just like, Sherman does come to Sherman does come to during the march. It hits him that, and Jeff Shaw actually discusses this, and it's historical fiction, but I think this is probably how Sherman thought, that Sherman realized that some of the bad stuff that happened on the march was going to fall on him, and it was going to affect how he was viewed in the future. And he knew that, like, he knew the march was going to be seen as something very negative by the South, and for many generations to come, that there was going to be stories passed down, which is where you get into the historical memory. And I think Sherman was well aware of that, but he did what had to be done. Getting back to the book, Sharita said, I read a diary of a guy from the 15th Confederate Cavalry at the Tulane Archives. It was translated from French and absolutely amazing. So many personal and intimate details about his feelings on the war and being so far from home. I loved it. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, Sharita, I think you would really enjoy Dr. Carmichael's book, War for the Common Soldier. If you haven't read it already, I think you'd really enjoy it. Ryan said, love battles and leaders of the Civil War as generals and officers argue and try to control the narrative of the history of the Civil War. Not always accurate, but a great indication of the grudges some officers had after the war. Oh yeah, there was a lot of soap opera shit going on, especially Army of Tennessee with Braxton Bragg, and just this whole like, I'm better than you, kind of attitude. Andrea, let's be real, it was a lame group. Civil War Lampoon is the place to be, as is History Lampoon and all those other fun sites.
Oh yeah.
Allie B, it isn't Civil War drama if generals are trying to take credit for stuff they maybe didn't come up with. That's so true. Well, I came up with this. It's like, no, someone else did.
Well, that's
and Andrew said, okay, let's talk landmines. Why was he pissed about them? I mean, war is war.
That was my point.
Yeah, well, Sherman was pissed about the landmines, I think, because his attitude was, if you're going to fight me, come fight me in the open. Because by this point, Griswoldville had happened, and they had sent, elderly citizens and children to do the fighting with the Home Guard. And by this point, and Sherman, by this point, he's encountered trees over roads, so he's being slowed up by that. But I think it was just the fact that he saw it as being, Sherman of all people saw it as being inhumane, and the way it was probably the theory he was taught at West Point that was making him think that way. That's why he was pissed. To him, war was like, you get out and you just fight me if you want to have a battle.
Well, you know what, though? I don't know about that, Mayor. Because if he studied Jomini, which he did, that goes the opposite. It was the fight any way you can, beat him as hard and as quick as you possibly can using any tactics you possibly can. Mm-hmm. That's what he was drilled in at West Point.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm right.
Fucker.
Wow, and sank your battleship pretty hard on that one. Wow.
Who knows why he felt that way? Maybe he has it.
I mean, that's the thing. We joke about. We don't really know.
Yeah,
but they were trained. The thing about it though is what surprised me, and you're probably more right than wrong. I'm just fucking with you, but I think a lot of guys went through West Point and didn't take that attitude, but he did for whatever reason, and he ended up basically being a certain attitude, and I think he was very prophetic when he mentioned earlier that what the war was going to take to win, and I think, I think if a lot of people listen to him at the beginning, Cameron and those other dudes, I think it might have been a little bit different. But the North, I mean, they felt the war was going to be quick. It was going to be over early. That's why there was so many 60-day signees and 90-day signees at the beginning.
There was definitely a lot of misunderstanding, including on Lincoln's part. I think, like, even Lincoln misunderstood exactly how bad it was, because I mean, if you're in the North, you're getting a very different picture of how than in the South, right? And this is at a time when travel is not quick. Like, we don't have like the technology we do now, which, you can find out things a lot quicker, right? But just, the other example of Sherman saying to somebody, this is going to be bad and you don't realize it, is when his brother John takes him to meet President Lincoln after Lincoln's arrived in Washington, and Lincoln says to him, well, how are things going down south? You just came from there. And Sherman was kind of like taken back by it and said, well, swimmingly, they're fucking preparing for war. And Lincoln just didn't really, he kind of says, oh, well, I guess we'll hold our own. And I mean, Sherman didn't say anything to him at the time, but then when he and his brother left, he tore a strip off John, and he was like, you fucker, like, you don't realize it. You politicians are the ones that are going to cause this. You have no idea what it's going to do.
Well, I wonder how much the death of Edward Baker to Lincoln is in that regard. Like, if Ball's Bluff happens pretty obviously very early in the war, and if he realized at this point that this is, at some point the light must have gone on in his head saying, we can't, this is going to be a pain in the ass. This is not going to be a quick thing. But he had to do it. I mean, he had no choice. I mean, obviously. Yeah. But I think, he calls up those 75,000 troops right at the beginning, and it forces states like Virginia to secede and stuff like they would, and like I said before, I don't know where the hell I said it to, either offline, is where Shelby Foote was actually right. Was the Union fought this army with one arm tied behind their back, and if they went all in at the beginning, it would have it would have been a little bit different, but that's the way it is.
Joseph said that Thomas died when Schofield wrote a hellacious article about him when he read it and apparently dropped dead 2 days later. That's horrible. Thomas was Thomas came across as a really good guy that I don't think he had the ego on him that Sherman had, or Hooker, or even Grant to some extent. Like, there was a few of these guys that didn't really have an ego. They were just there to fight. Buford and Thomas, I think, are just, in my opinion, two examples of them. Hi, David. Joseph said Grant had a fragile ego. Of course, he was intimidated by Thomas. Yep. Andrew said, I live near Fort Thomas. I've yet to hit the visitor center. I think he's got a statue too. Andrea, when you go, can you please take a picture for me?
Where's Andrea going?
She lives near Fort Thomas.
Yeah, I know. She's in Kentucky, right? She's in Cincinnati area, where I was in December, and I actually sent Andrea pictures. As a matter of fact, I was in Cincinnati last December. Matter of fact.
Caroline said burning papers was the thing to do. Such a shame. Amelia said Joseph received. They got parceled out to friends and relatives. Yeah, this is his kids. Hood's kids. Hood's wife came from a wealthy New Orleans family, prominent attorney, father, Louisiana Supreme Court justice grandfather. Yeah, that's what happened to Sherman too. And when his father died, his mother Mary couldn't afford to keep all the kids at home. So that's why Sherman and John they literally just moved 2 doors down to the Ewing's place. So Sherman still had contact with his mother, but the other siblings got farmed out to other areas. But that's why Sherman was actually Sherman and his brother John were like fire and ice. John was referred to as the Ohio icicle because apparently he was a very cold man. And Sherman was very
Good nickname. That's one thing we can't dismiss is how some of these wonderful nicknames that came out of the Civil War for these people.
The Ohio icicle.
Grumble Jones is still my favorite. Grumble Jones is still my favorite. That's a great one. Grumble.
Grumble Jones.
Fuck you. We're calling you Grumble.
Andrea said he could have liberated Andersonville, but he wouldn't have been able to care for them. Yeah, I think that's
what we're saying. Yeah, exactly.
Like he just didn't. He's barely going to have enough to feed his army. And especially as the further south they go, the less farmland there is because the sandier the soil becomes, which is why they're basically living off rice near the.
No, and again, this is where hindsight being 2020, our benefactor is. We knew he didn't need 60,000 men to make that march. It's easy to sit back and say, could he have left some guys behind to liberate and take care of them and just leave some stuff for them and get them back? But again, he didn't know what he was running into. So it's one of those hindsight things. I bet you if you dug him up and he was alive again and you could have talked about his how he, if he had any mistakes he would have made, I bet you that'd be one of them that he did. I bet you he had to have. I mean, he's had to have.
Oh yeah, I think it's the same with why didn't he go after the Augusta? I think it was the Augusta where they were making like ammo and stuff. Like why he didn't go after that? That would have been his thing to stop.
Remember you thought Augusta was a capital of Georgia and you fucked that whole thing up?
Excuse me. Are you talking into a mirror right now? Fucker, that was you.
I said, I'm sorry. You cut out. What was that? I'm sorry.
Fucker. You were the one. I said Atlanta's now the capital. No, you said Atlanta, or is it Augusta? And I was like, I think it's Atlanta.
I heard that in the podcast, and I think you somehow slid that in. You somehow got a voice thing. You put it, and you know what? Earlier, Ryan makes a point about you doing the editing, and he's right about that. You take out all of my good points.
What?
Now, read his thing. He wrote that you do the editing. If you don't write the history, edit the podcast, you're going to lose the most arguments than you're expected. He's right. Right.
Jesus.
See, that's the thing, Ryan. You're right on. I'll say something brilliant that contradicts her, and I'll listen to it, and suddenly it's gone out of the podcast. It's funny how that works.
I keep in all the times you're busting me over shit, like.
And then, except later in the broadcast when she's editing, when the beer kicks in a little bit, it gets a little looser, I think. But the beginning, all my good stuff gets taken out. But that's okay. I'm used to that.
Hey, Andrew, you want to do a podcast?
I'll get Tuesday nights off. It'll be awesome. I can find something else to do. Yes, I know it's Augusta, Maine, Andrea. For God's sakes, listen to her go. I thought you were on my side. Damn it.
Amelia, maybe this tracks some to what came up last time about the classical training at West Point. Pre-war rules of engagement did not include landmines and did not include elaborate dignity. Can't come up with the right word, but that's close to norms. Hey, Mike. Andrea, did any other officer ever write about Sherman skipping over Andersonville? That would be interesting to know.
I don't know if to be honest, I think that's a complete hindsight thing. But I was in my my local Civil War Roundtable meeting a year or two ago, and we had a whole discussion about that. About did Sherman really, is that a black mark on his thing? And there was the speaker we had was a pretty good speaker.
I think it's a great discussion.
And again, it's one of those things you'll never know, because I don't think to the point you just read, I don't think anybody's ever really read it, written it about it. But I mean, if he's a map guy and had the census and he knew everything was going on in that area, how did he not know? It just doesn't add up.
But he did. But I think Andrea makes a really good point when she said.
Andrea does?
I think she was the one that said couldn't feed his soldiers.
Yeah, well, she's right. But my point was, why couldn't you take it? I mean, again, we don't know. Never mind. But if he knew the future. You wonder if he knew he didn't need that many, if he would have left some guys behind to liberate and be with them and get them all and get them out, and just take them back. And because he could have probably done it with a brigade at that point, because a lot of the only people who were guarding Andersonville in 1864 were kids and old men, the same people, the Georgia Guard, same people who were fighting Sherman.
Yeah, but you know, we've had how many years to study this, and I'm not defending him. I'm sure he had his reasons. Maybe if he could go back and see, like, okay, I could have spared those men. I could have sent, you know, a brigade from Howard's right wing to go do that. Jim said, book enabling alert. A great novel about Sherman's March to the Sea is The March by Pulitzer Prize winning author E.L. Doctorow. Do you know that I just saw that book the other day at the library I work at? I was doing some collection maintenance in one of the areas and I came across it and I thought, I have to read that one sometime.
Did you jack it?
Pardon?
Did you take it? Did you liberate it from the library?
I did not liberate it.
Oh.
I left it. Andrea said, I've got to crack into my copy of Life and Letters of Alexander Hayes. He was one salty bitch. The salty bitches are the best. Ryan, Mary will win these arguments because Notre Dame sucks, doesn't do the editing. Yeah,
that's what my point
I
exactly. She says many times she has the power of Grayskull. Okay,
I do.
And she can control all the stuff. You know, it's fine. Hey, but you know what?
I'm not editing it in my favor.
No, you would never do. You never would.
Okay.
No, you don't. You
Let
don't.
me just
I'm
get
just kidding.
serious
Jesus
here
Christ.
for a
Here we
second.
go. Here we go.
Serious
Okay, go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay, you're
Mhm.
listening.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is going to go on record now.
Okay.
You are the smartest person about the Civil War that I know.
Wow.
There you go.
Wow. Look at.
You're my go-to person. So there.
Oh, I have to say about you. You're pretty smart yourself, man. We talked about that. You know. But no, you. I know you don't take the stuff out, but it's all funny. It's just.
Oh, it's funny. It is funny. No, it's good. And yeah, like, I mean, as much as Darren and I agree on stuff, there is stuff that we disagree about too. And
yeah, like the Indians
so
versus the Red Sox. The shit you give me for that.
They're going to play in the World Series together.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're going to play in the World Series.
Genius.
And the Indians are going to score more touchdowns, and the Red Sox goaltender is going to steal the game.
Andrea said Thomas was a teddy bear. Oh yeah, he was.
He had that teddy bear look to him, but I've said a million times. I think he would have been a U.S. president someday. I think he would have been. He had the connections.
Yep.
He had the Virginia thing going. He would have had the military thing. I think he had it all. I think that you want to talk about potential Civil War death losses. I think he's the biggest one by far as far as the future goes.
Him and McPherson.
Burbseye.
Yeah, Burbseye.
I think McPherson had, he was young. He had a potential too, but I think, I think I think the Civil War changed so much with that. Even Hancock's injury, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He gets the bullet in the saddle at Gettysburg, and I know he fights right through Ream Station in Petersburg, and he does all that. But he lost his fastball after that, and he just wasn't the same.
A lot of them.
He ended up losing to Garfield, right, in the election of 1884.
I think so. Yep.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he did, and I think I'm just winging this, but I remember I think he was close in total votes, but he lost by the Electoral College by quite a bit.
And Garfield is another one that could have gone down as one of the greatest presidents ever had he not been assassinated, because he's a really fascinating guy to study, and I highly recommend going to the Garfield home sometime. And I know one of our listeners, Jacob, who's got the History Book podcast, he just did an interview with some people from the Garfield home, which I've been meaning to listen to that episode. But
speaking of the Garfield people, if you're on Twitter, you've got to follow them on Twitter. They are the best. The Garfield home is the best Twitter follow. They're so much fun to do.
Yeah.
I would say
them and Battlefields.
American Battlefield Trust, without a doubt, they're friends of ours. They're really, really good. But for those ones, it's
and some fucker named Darren J. Weeks is a pretty fun.
No, don't. He sucks. Almost follow him.
Actually, there's a lot of fun follows on Twitter. Allie B, she's a good one too.
All the people we follow.
All the people are following are fun.
Really
a lot of them are on here. They're fun follows, and I actually learn a lot from them too. Ryan said, "Poor Lincoln. Imagine the shit he's getting from his wife and her family. Didn't two of his brothers-in-law fight for the South? Ben Hardenhelm certainly, and I think there was a second one. Definitely Benjamin Hardenhelm, who was killed. I think the second day at Chickamauga, and then Lincoln catches shit because he has Helm's widow, who's Mary's half sister. She comes up to Washington in secrecy, and then they find out, and he catches shit they're like, you're harboring the Confederates, like a Confederate in your house. And he takes a lot of shit for that, but they had to mourn in private because of that. Pretty
Yeah,
much
because
hammered home.
exactly,
Yeah.
you know. But so all these other points, yeah, there is no fear in McPherson. Yeah, I mentioned that last time too. That's someone said that to me in Gettysburg a couple summers ago. It was a relative of the McPherson family, and shockingly, I was sitting at the bar at Sweeney's one night,
Mhm.
and we were talking about that. And that's the best part about going to these battlefields is sitting at the bar and talking to these people about this stuff who've been
Yeah.
there for generations. And I remember that line: "There is no fear in McPherson." I remember that.
Which is fun. We had
But he was
discussed this
Scottish. He
last
wasn't
time.
Irish. People think he's Irish, but he was actually Scottish.
Because I went to
You
school
know?
with a guy who's related to Burbseye, and he pronounced it.
Really?
Yep.
Well, I think it probably depends on the dialect or whatever. But
Yeah,
but
this dude
I mean,
he's
I
100%. So I've never met anybody that's more Scottish than this guy. Like
I mean, I don't know if it's a situation where he like Birdseye, if he pronounced it that way versus like the Gettysburg people. No, the Gettysburg
Yep.
people pronounced it McPherson. I know they did because the relatives are still there. You know?
You know what? I'm
but-
probably pronouncing it all wrong. Ryan said my favorite is Spoons Butler. Andrea's a
Spoons.
busted
Boston
kid.
guy. I'm gonna go visit his grave soon. He's buried up in Lowell. I'm gonna go up there pretty
Andrea's
soon. And go
nice.
visit
She
him.
calls you dummy. I just call you fucker.
Andrea, you know what? Andrea's so mean to me. I love Andrea. She's awesome, but she's very mean to me. She's very mean.
I love her too. She's awesome.
Yeah,
Great.
of course you like her. Give me shit. Of course you're gonna, you know.
Jim said another Butler nickname was the Beast after he issued General Order Number 28 when he said that any woman disrespecting federal troops would be treated as a woman of the town plying their trade.
Plying their where, yeah,
Ooh.
that's you want to talk about a spike in the ball situation, you know.
Sure, I
But
don't
he-
have that
he-
funny
he-
accent either. I know I have a crazy accent.
Your accent, you say certain things. We've talked about this many times.
I'm
offline.
told by
Some of the
Canadians
words
I
you
don't
say.
sound Canadian, and I'm told by Americans I sound Canadian.
You sound Canadian. You
And
do.
when I go to Britain, they can't understand me because I have such a strong Canadian accent.
No, you do. You say process. You say a boot, and things like that. And you say and you spell favorite. You say that, but that's the way you talk. It's nothing wrong with this. You know?
Well, Ryan caught a bit of shit last week from his wife for using you, and then he said he was watching with a Canadian.
Yeah, I remember that. That was pretty
good.
funny.
Hey, Bruce. Hey, Bob. Opening line in every Civil War general's memoir quotes Mary, "I'm not editing this in my favor." You ever read so Sherman issued 2 versions of his memoirs.
Mhm.
And the second one was because he caught shit the first time. So then
Yep.
he went back in and added stuff, but he didn't really change a lot of things. So he actually does this like very eloquent fuck you to people. He's like,
I'm very good at that, by the way.
I know you are. So am I, apparently. He said, "These are my memoirs and I'm going to tell it like it is."
Mhm.
And he's like, if you gathered 100 people in the same room that had been to the same event, you would have 100 different versions of the story. This is mine. Fuck off and just read them.
You know what? I think Grant's memoirs is the best thing ever written in the Civil War. Just
Yep,
because it's
they're
just
very
it,
good.
it
He's a
is.
very
I think
eloquent
McPherson's Battle Cry of Freedom. I think Grant's. If someone says, once in a while we get these questions, if you're going to read one thing about the Civil War, I always suggest McPherson's book. You see, I said McPherson that time, by the way.
Uh-huh.
That's how he pronounces it.
So
You know,
maybe he's right. Maybe he's
Doesn't- doesn't-
Canadian.
Oh, that's
Maybe.
probably exactly. Fuck that then. Okay,
Jay Price is
whatever.
reading McPherson's book right now, actually.
Good. Andrea, no, I'm talking about Darren. I have an accent, Andrea. Do I have an accent?
Yeah, you do.
Do I?
Yeah, you do.
I don't think I used to have a worse one before I moved to Texas and I came back. But I guess
Oh,
do I really?
Yeah, you do a little bit.
I do notice, in all seriousness, is when I've been drinking, it comes my Boston
does.
accent comes out more.
It does.
I didn't think I had one. Do I have really?
Nope.
Do you think I have one?
Yeah, you do. But yeah, when you're
Seriously?
drinking, when you've been, I mean, some of our virtual beers, when you get a few in.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No. Allie said, I wouldn't wish the presidency on anyone during the late 19th century after reading about what Grant went through. Politics was a shit show. Yeah, and I think Grant's presidency is now getting a reevaluation thanks to like people like Chernow and Ronald C. White. They're looking at, he's seen in a bit of a more positive light. But Grant's problem was that, he didn't see the corruption or want to see it. And he was doing favors for people that were corrupt. And that's why his friendship with Sherman, actually, they're not as close after the Civil War, because there was this thing that came about where, you know, it would have given Sherman more control because he was head of the armies at that point. And Grant said, yeah, this is cool. This is what we wanted. But then Rawlins said, nope, we can't do this. And Sherman found out from somebody else, and he went to Grant and said, what are you doing? This is what we talked about during the Civil War that needed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And Grant just said, well, Rawlins is dying right now, and I got to do this to him as a favor. And Sherman, apparently, he just looked at Grant and said, very well, Mr. President, and he left the office. And
Rawlins was a guy. He was always in the periphery, but he was always in the middle of everything.
He was like, it's really funny. The narrative in Jeff Shara's The Smoke at Dawn, Rawlins is this very kind of almost motherly figure to Grant, and Grant's inner monologue is like, he's like a puppy sometimes. He's always there, or he would be hanging around outside the door listening in or whatever. Mm-hmm. What are you giggling about?
This is Andrea's comment.
Andrea, yes, McPherson was a huge loss. Cutie Pie too, his fiance never married, died an old maid. Yeah, same with Reynolds' fiance, Kate.
You know, when we go to Gettysburg, we have to have Andrea come down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Andrea, so Pike, when we go to Gettysburg next time, you're going to have to come down and hang with us, because that'd be a lot of fun. Imagine the trouble we'd get in.
Actually, she might be closer to come down when we're at Chattanooga.
Yeah, that'd be fine, you know.
Yeah.
She's got to get out of the house.
See her on her way down, because I'm probably going to pick you up at some fucking airport. And...
Wow. Don't break your back, Mary. Be careful carrying that cross. I want to see you hurt yourself.
Hey, I offered. Amelia said, Team McPherson over here maybe would have been president also had he lived. Yeah. Ryan said, Isaac Stevens is a potential presidential candidate. Phil Kearney is slated by Lincoln for higher command. That's not just my Chantilly obsession talking. Allie,
I love Chantilly. You been to Chantilly, Mayor?
No, I have not.
That's a cool little battlefield outside of Washington, D.C., right in the Air Force Base over there. It's pretty cool.
Jim said, there is a book about Lincoln and the Todd family. I think there were at least 3 brothers that fought for the Confederacy. It's House of Abraham Lincoln and the Todds, A Family Divided by War by Stephen Barry. Jim, one of Mary's brothers was a sadistic surgeon in Richmond during the war. Oh, God.
Sadistic surgeon. That'd be great on a business card, wouldn't it?
No, okay, so back to Chantilly. Where is it? It's in
Virginia, just outside of like northwest of Virginia, just like not far away. Okay. If you're going from Harper's Ferry to Washington, D.C., you go right by it.
Okay.
It's one of those, it's like Monocacy, it's like Kernstown. You can go there and spend a half an hour to get in and out of there, but it's pretty cool. But that's where Kearney
So when we go to Washington, we'll go to Chantilly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it's an easy, it's nice. It's a friend of mine used to live there. My friend Don used to live right there. He was a military guy, and he lived right there. A lot of military families live in Northern Virginia like that. But Mary, we could do Chantilly. We could do Balls Bluff. They're all right in the same area.
We should do that.
I can put you on a pontoon boat and sail you across the river, just like they did with Devons.
And then you'll be like Baker and run up and down looking for the pontoon.
I would be. I'd be like David Hasselhoff running on the beach. Running up in slow motion with my board. Build a boat.
Ryan's got a Canadian question. About 40,000 Canadians fight in the Civil War. If the Trent Affair goes hot, what to the Canucks in blue do? Prince Albert softened Prime Minister Palmerston's ultimatum so that Lincoln could back down. Albert was dead in a matter of days. If he died earlier and Palmerston sent the unedited ultimatum, Lincoln would have struggled to back down without a huge shitstorm. So what did the Canadians do? That's a really good question. I mean, we were looking for our independence at that point, so I imagine we would have been like, fuck off. We'll just keep fighting. I mean, the Canadian government stance on the Civil War was really iffy. Like, you look to somewhere like Quebec.
Well, you guys wanted a weekend U.S. just like everybody else did, though.
Oh, we did, but we wanted it both ways. Like, you look to how it is in Quebec with the Montreal being a fucking Confederate hotbed. But then you have, most Canadians fighting for the Union, but there was a few who fought for the Confederacy, including a guy from my area called Solomon Secord, who was a Confederate surgeon. Apparently, he went down to Georgia for a vacation around the time of secession and then got quote unquote captured. And they were like, huh, you're a surgeon and we need doctors, so you're joining our army, which a little bit shady. But there's a Confederate monument next county over from me, which I'll go see sometime.
I told you there's a Confederate monument in Boston,
Mm-hmm.
right at Fort Warren, which is pretty, not
Yeah,
honestly
that's an
pretty
odd
cool.
place
But
for it
yeah,
to
I
be.
remember seeing that a couple of years ago, being
But
surprised
yeah,
about that.
that's a really good question, Ryan. And actually, one thing I do want to cover on the show sometime is about Canada and the Civil War, as well as the Trent Affair, because that's
We should do a Canadian. That'd be a good podcast. We have everything booked for like the end of the year, I
Mhm.
think, with everything.
Yeah.
But we should do a Canada and the Civil
Well,
War
there
podcast.
was
That'd be
some
a good one.
Canadians that won the Medal of Honor. There's the ones that we've talked about, like Doherty, who's
Doherty going 16th of York. It's
Yeah.
Lincoln's Avengers. Yeah.
Yep. And then there was the guy that killed fucking diva of the Confederacy, Jeb Stuart, John A. Huff. He's a Canadian. He
Is
was
it Huff or is it Howe?
Huff.
I'm just kidding.
Fucking question me on everything.
You know what?
now.
The look on your face made that question worth it, Mary. It really, really did. Here's what- I'm just, for a half a second, you doubted it. Just for a half a second.
Because you proved me gullible a few weeks ago.
Oh, I did. What are you talking
did.
about?
You
What the fucking
did.
hell are you talking about?
did.
Gullible.
Allie B said James Wilson tried to make the huge case that Rollins was really the brains behind Grant, which I'm like, I mean, I think Rollins, but I don't think that was, I like Rollins, but I don't think that was the case. Yeah, neither do I. I think Rollins was basically there as kind of like the moral support for Grant. And I mean, Rollins is a pretty cool guy. He gave a really interesting speech around the time of secession that really got people fired up. Andrea, I'll be the DD. Yeah, we're going to fucking need one, trust me.
We stay right downtown, so you really don't need one, you know.
Andrew said, I think Gettysburg is closer. I'm in northernmost. Okay, yeah.
Andrew, you're in Northern Kentucky, right? Are you near Covington? Is that where you're at? That's where I stayed when I was there last time. Cincinnati, you know, going off topic a little bit, that Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area is a pretty cool little area.
It is.
We were down,
That's one of the places I said we should go on a road trip because there's a lot of cool stuff to see there.
I'd be fine with that.
That's where Claiborne lived prior to the
but
when he first arrived.
But we were in Cincinnati last December. We went for the Patriot Bengal game with our friend Bill. Okay, and we stayed in Northern Kentucky, and we were up there during. Andrea probably knows about this. We were up there during a thing called SantaCon, which apparently the entire weekend, everyone dresses as Santa Claus in the bars. And so we're sitting there at the bar, we're in a regular shit, and everyone is Santa Claus. I'm like, Bill, am I nuts or is everyone here dressed as Santa Claus? And everybody in the bar except us was dressed as Santa Claus. In the Cincinnati bar, right by the Red Stadium. There was I forget the name of the place, but it was a pretty cool place.
Like I know where you're. Yeah.
And then we and there's a place. Oh God, what the hell? Andrea probably knows. There's a stretch in Covington where it's all whiskey bars, and cigar, whiskey, bourbon, the whole deal. I forget the name of it now, but she probably knows. But that's a fun little area. That's pretty fun.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good time.
I'd love to go. I was in Cincinnati, not this past May, but the May before that, but only for like 3 days, and I wanted more time there because there was so much to see and do. And like the beer scene was pretty good as well. Joseph has to leave. He's got some more work to do. Thanks for joining us, Joseph.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for stopping by.
Andrea said, but I'd totally drive down. There's something about Chickamauga. There's a strange, almost eerie pull for me. Yeah, that's how actually I felt about.
Well, we're going in March, right?
Yeah, if the border's open and we're able to travel, we are.
Oh God! We're supposed to go. We're part of the Chattanooga Chickamauga Roundtable, and they're doing their big thing with Dave Powell. We talked about our boy Dave Powell, so we're going to go down there and visit him and go see that whole thing. So hopefully it opens up. You have to get my ass to the airport for that one, Mary.
Yeah.
You're going to do the airport pickup for that one. You're going to pick up the cargo here at the airport.
Yep, I'm looking forward to that. I'll meet you in the fucking baggage claim.
I'll come riding on that thing. I'll slide around the tube and just come spinning around with the tag on me. You'll come pick me up and grab me out of the fucking luggage thing.
But yeah, Chickamauga is a place I've been to twice. It and Gettysburg are tied for first for my favorite battlefield to visit. I can't pick between the two of them because they're both very powerful places, but for different reasons. I mean, my absolute favorite place to visit there and this will probably be your favorite place too, Andrea, when you go, is Snodgrass Hill, where Thomas was, where he made his last stand, because there's like pretty crazy energy there. But the whole battlefield's amazing to explore. It's so different from Gettysburg, just the terrain and how much there is there. The visitor center is really awesome. It's obviously smaller than Gettysburg Visitor Center, but they have a really great introductory movie. They've got like an awesome little bookshop there. And it's just a cool area to explore. And Lookout Mountain, the view from Lookout Mountain is absolutely gorgeous.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Ryan, Spoons, Banks, Mar, am I getting it right? Are
It's
others
meager.
keen on annexing Canada, especially if they lose the South? Spoons thought fighting the British would be reuniting. Yeah, we were a hot topic. That's one of the reasons we became a country in 1867 was over that, was that we were being put on the chopping block, and we basically were like, okay, no more of this. We need to be sort of a country. I mean, we obviously still have ties for Britain now, which admittedly I don't understand, but anyway.
Let's save the Queen.
No. Kidding. Ryan, book enabling, see Dixie and the Dominion by Andy Myers. Andrea, the Trent Affair has always interested me, but I just haven't gotten to read enough about it. I might have some book recommendations for you about that, Andrea, to look those up. Andrea said, Grant's boyhood home isn't too far from Cincinnati. Jesse Grant's place is in Covington, maybe Newport. Yeah. I've actually been to the Grant birthplace, which is near Cincinnati, and then the boyhood home isn't far from that. The Grant birthplace is a really cool place to.
They got a really good like a slavery abolitionist museum in Cincinnati that we went to. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. Andrew said, yes, Horseshoe Ridge. Yeah, that's my favorite place to go. And I like to go there around 4:00 in the afternoon when there's nobody. That's when the park really empties out. It's never busy there. And I might take a beverage with me.
I was going to say, is that when happy hour starts?
Yeah, I totally admit to drinking wine out of a water bottle there.
Well, at least you haven't been caught drinking on the battlefield at Gettysburg like some people have.
Yeah, I was drinking wine out of a fucking water bottle.
That's probably
amazing. But then there was people walking around with open bottles of beer around me.
Well, speaking of that story, and I've told that before, is so there's a brewery up here called Shipyard up here in New England, and they make a Joshua Chamberlain Pale Ale, and it's a picture of Chamberlain on the bottle, right? And Joshua Chamberlain was asked at one point, do you ever want a statue at Gettysburg? And he said, no, maybe someday somebody will put me on a beer bottle. It was a literal quote that he had. And so Shipyard put him on a beer bottle. And so for years, whenever I'd go to Gettysburg, I would take an empty bottle, I would drink half of it, I would dump the other half out at the monument of 20th Maine.
That's awesome.
And I would stick the bottle at the monument and stick a flag in there, a U.S. flag. That was my little tradition. Well, one day, some ranger gave me shit for drinking on the battlefield. And I said, do you realize that? I told him the whole story, and she just didn't care. And so ever since that, I haven't been able to do it before. But that was, to do it again. But that was the one time I got in trouble for alcohol on the battlefield.
I mean,
and I told her, she goes, you can take the flag. I'll leave the flag, but you're going to take the bottle. And I was like, the whole point is the bottle.
Yeah. Well, I know when I was drinking on Snodgrass Hill, Horseshoe Ridge, it was completely for Thomas.
Well, yeah, okay, sure. But mine legit was, though.
Mine legit was, too. I walked
Are you
over
calling
to
yourself
where the
Thomas now?
No.
It was completely for Thomas. By the way, I'm calling myself Thomas
Thomas
now.
Super fangirl.
Hey.
No, I went over to the monument, or they don't have any monuments there, but just the plaque that they have for Thomas there. And there's a lot of, like, I don't know, Horseshoe Ridge is just extremely peaceful there. Hey, Leonard. Leonard asked, is Georgia howling yet? He's probably seen our meme for the podcast.
Real quick, so Chris says they leave a Sam Adams bottle as gravesite. It's perfectly accepted. I don't know, Chris, I don't know if you're from Boston or not, but there's a brewery right across the street from Sam Adams' gravesite. I told you about this when I was there a few weeks ago.
There.
And and so it's called Beantown Pub, and it's owned by Samuel Adams. And the reason why they bought that bar, it's literally right across the street from Granary Cemetery in Boston. You can drink a Sam Adams while looking at his gravestone. And so that was the whole point of it. And so he mentions people leave Sam Adams bottles in his gravestone, but that's pretty cool. Whenever I go into the city, I always do that.
Allie B says Spotsylvania is one of my favorites. You can walk Emery Upton's path for his attack and then the bloody angle. It's so peaceful, but also eerie. That's another place you need to go, to Spotsylvania. Ryan said, never yet got over to the U.S. to do a battlefield. Sailed over the approximate area of the Battle of Cherbourg, USS Kearsarge, I'm butchering this, versus CSS Alabama. So my favorite battlefield remains Bannock and Culloden. Christopher, here we go. Hey, Christopher. You better bring me some of these. I think Christopher's from Gettysburg, isn't he?
I don't know. I'm not,
Jim said
but I spend a lot of time. Yeah, Boston is great. I mean, it's my hometown, so I'm skewed. But Boston is the best as far as
as soon as I
it's a beautiful clean city, but as far as the history and the sports and the bars, there is no better city than Boston. I'm sorry, there isn't. But that Beantown pub is really, really cool though. The history behind it. So yeah, when we were there, I showed the pictures of the Sam Adams stuff.
Somehow I managed to quote unquote travel virtually.
Yeah, exactly. And then James Otis, we just talked about him a few days ago.
Yeah.
But definitely, you're from Scranton, Pennsylvania. Hey, Chris, I was in Gettysburg 2 summers ago, and I was sitting at a bar called the Tattered Flag, which is right on Steinway. And there was a couple there from Scranton, Pennsylvania. And so, of course, I brought up the question about the TV show The Office. They'd never seen one episode. And I was stunned. So, you've been to Beantown, but Beantown's really, really cool. That's a cool place.
Jim said, my favorite place in Chickamauga is on top of Lytle Hill, where my great-great-grandfather, Walter Partridge, received a tree wound in the forehead when a runaway wagon struck a dead tree, which fell into him. Poor Oscar Hobbs was presumed dead, but later revived. Oh, wow. It's a cool story.
Ryan says Boston, full of more Irishmen than have been born in Ireland. That's a factual truth. There are more people, Mary, of Irish descent in the city of Boston than in the entire country of Ireland.
That's crazy.
It's true. It's a census thing. The whole south part of Boston is Irish, and there are some really good Irish bars in Southie, some really, really cool places. And that's why there are a lot of douchebags who root for Notre Dame in Boston, because the Irish, they've never been outside of New England, but they're Irish fans. And whenever they come to Chestnut Hill, and I got to sit there and see them with their Boston accents going, go Irish, go Irish. I'm like, have you been to South Bend? No, because it's Irish. But Boston College was an Irish settled college.
Well, I do, Irish thanks Catholics. To you. You basically drilled that into my head.
Notre Dame was a French name school in rural Indiana, but they get Irish. We should be called, if anything, we should be called that, but that's another
I like the
story.
Eagles. The Eagles is awesome.
Eagles is cool, but
yeah.
Whatever. Notre Dame.
Back to just to what Jim said, though. Lytle Hill is probably my second favorite place to go, just because the story of Lytle. And I love the story even more now that I found out that he definitely was a Mason. And that's why the Confederate protected his
Masons
body.
Are cool.
I know.
Yeah, Chris, Doyle's closed. Doyle's wasn't the best place, though. Doyle's was the touristy place. But that's the place of Good Will Hunting, is Doyle's.
Okay. I love that movie. It's a good movie. Leonard said, can you smell what The Rock is drinking? And Andrew said, I'm still kicking myself for not taking a picture of my Lawrence Starbucks cup. That needs to be a thing on our podcast, I think, is like, when you go to Starbucks, say a Civil War name, make sure you take a picture of it and see what crazy names we can come up with.
Andrea, I still say I have no accent. Sorry.
Andrea, I have the Rock shirt from Civil War Tees. Yeah, I've got one with, it's not from Civil War Tees, but it's a picture of it's a picture of General Thomas on it. There's a lot of comments. Got a lot of people on here today. Jim said, I'm learning about Civil War photography today in Gettysburg. It's cool.
Nice. But Chris, the next time you're in Boston, okay, in the city of Boston, there's a beer called Sam Adams Brick Red. They only serve in the city at the bars. Get that. They don't sell it outside of the city or in cans or any places. You can only get it in certain bars in the city. All the bars near Fenway have it. It's really, really cool. So if you like Sam Adams.
Someone said, LOL, all of us watch The Office. And then Leonard said, Mare doesn't actually unless she has started. I haven't yet.
I can't believe I have not watched The Office.
Then why haven't you suggested it as something
my fucking... I've said it 1,000 times to you. 1,000 times you got to watch The Office.
Whoa. What do you want to watch tonight?
Well, I guess The Office. Oh my god!
You come up with something else.
Fincheroo. Mary, I've told you 1,000 times The Office, and you
I
said
know.
I've never seen it. That is honestly, come on. That is one of the greatest TV shows of all time. Seriously.
Oh, Jim just told us to check Twitter. Team OO. Awesome.
Yeah, but definitely. But The Office is really, really cool. Do you ever see The Office? Oh, you haven't because you haven't seen it. But there's an episode they actually go to Gettysburg.
Yes, you've
It's really,
mentioned
really,
it a few
it's really,
times.
really funny.
Yeah.
It's after Carell left, Steve Carell left, which is not as good as before, but it's pretty good. But yeah.
Andrea
yeah,
hasn't seen. She's only seen a few episodes. She's with me.
brings me a
Crystal-
pale, and I'll. Oh yeah, okay, all right. Bring you. So Chris, I'll bring you a Chamberlain Pale Ale, and you'll get me a Poor Rich's shirt. Okay, sounds like a pretty good deal right there. You know,
Andrea, Team Moo.
Team,
Team Moo.
team.
Team Moo. Team Moo.
That's pretty funny.
Team Moo.
Al, you haven't seen an episode of The Office. What the hell is wrong with this country? You haven't seen The Office either?
Don't give Allie shit.
I'm not giving her a shot. It's
She's a Patriots fan too. We have a lot of fun.
I
with
know
her on
she
game
is.
day.
Come on, Al. You're better than that. That's your homework assignment, Biddles. You gotta watch the Office. It's pretty fun.
Caroline's got to jump off. She's going to go to the Lincoln Forum Virtual Symposium today. I'll take copious notes for you guys. Have a great time, Caroline, and thank you for stopping by.
Definitely. It's always a good time.
Hey, Matt. Jim has
Matt
not seen The Office either.
No, he's crazy. So Matt Kumpel, he's another fraternity brother of mine from Texas, another Fiji. What's going on, Matt? Good to usually Fritz jumps on this a little bit, but he's a good dude. We had a lot of laughs with him back in the day.
Leonard
so glad to
said
see him jumping on.
Mayor is under the spell of the Gettysburg Industrial Complex. Watching The Office would force her to acknowledge the Battle of Shrew Farms.
So you got to watch it for that, the Battle of Shrew Farms. But there's a lot of Civil War pop culture that comes into a show like that. That's really, really cool to do. But I definitely
Allie's got 500 books to read. I gotta commend Allie B with how much she reads. Well,
that's always been my bugaboo too.
She's just getting into studying the Civil War, I think, and she knows so much.
I'll tell you, she knows her shit though.
Oh yeah, that's why she's such a fun follow on Twitter too, because she puts humor into it as well.
Yeah.
Ryan said, U.S. Office like the U.S. Civil War, simplified version of the much more nuanced UK Office and English Civil War. You
know what though, Ryan? See, I've seen the British version of The Office with what's his name, the actor who plays it.
I know. I can picture him.
And I'm blanking on it, but it just wasn't as good. It just wasn't,
But you see, in Canada, the British Office was more popular than the American one. And that's because British comedies are huge here, but I think that's just how tied to Britain we still are. British humor is very different from American humor.
Right, Ricky Gervais.
That's it. Andrea said to Allie B, same girl, same about the books. Yeah, I'm the exact same. And today I'm actually planning on ordering, besides a birthday gift for you, fucker, the new book about George Meade that just came out. Jim's also never watched The Office.
If you've worked in an office environment and you watch The Office, you will love it because it is so straight up. It is so funny. It's just, that, but the problem is I don't watch TV as much as I used to be honest. I'm not lately getting.
I watch more TV now because of you.
Yeah, I know. Well, I was going to say because the same reason, but before I would just read. Now I'm watching more stuff, movies and stuff we watch together and have fucking fun with that. But it's but The Office is really, really good. It should be something you should watch. It's really, really good.
Yeah, well, let's watch it then. Jim said, I have an entire room of Civil War books to read and I keep buying more. Same here. And I've got 4 books on the go. I've got Black Iron Mercy, which is historical fiction enabled by
It's a
Weeks.
great book. That is a great book.
Really, really good.
Like the Iron Brigade, get Iron.
Yeah.
Black Iron Mercy.
Yeah, it's really, really good. I'm reading Battle Above the Clouds by Powell, and then I've got a book about Franklin on the go. And I've got
we gotta look up
Powell
when we go to Chickamauga. We gotta look.
Yeah,
I think he's going to be at that thing we're going to.
Yeah,
but we should probably hang with him.
He lives in Illinois. I think he doesn't live.
But
in
I think Ed Lowell said he's going to come down for that.
Yeah.
For
I'd like to.
So that'd be cool.
Ryan said, actually, Kevin Phillips has a book that sees the English Civil War, War of Independence, and U.S. Civil War as one chain of conflicts about the same issues with the same groups taking the same sides each time. It's the Cousins War, I think.
Hey, speaking of Ricky Gervais, though, is it me or is he just not funny at all?
I don't know how, like, it's funny. Like in Canada, we find him hilarious.
Well, you guys think, but I just never thought he was funny. He did that Oscars thing a couple of years ago where he ripped on everybody, which is kind of funny, but I never thought he was funny. I don't know, whatever.
Jonathan just said, just bought a little short of boats, and I still have two that I'm trying to start. Yeah, that was one I think that Ryan enabled me on. That actually, that's the other one I need to pay. Jim said, I have some review copies of books I need to give away. Andrea finds Gervais hilarious.
I don't get it. I like everything. I just never thought he was funny. I've seen him so many times. I'm like, he just seems annoying. Like, I don't know. Anybody who puts themselves out there in comedy, which is my old world, I can appreciate, but not like that level, obviously. But I just never thought he was funny. I never thought he was. I still don't. There are a lot of guys like that. Dane Cook is another one I never thought was goddamn funny. He's a Boston guy, and I think he sucks. Flat out sucks. But people think he's the funniest thing. I just don't get that either. I just don't get it.
Now he's getting off topic. Andrea's wondering, what's with the Clayburn fandom? Isn't there practically a shrine to him at Franklin? So how I got into Clayburn was reading a lot about Sherman. And Clayburn actually, when Sherman was at Missionary Ridge, when he failed to take the ridge, which Thomas eventually took, it was because Clayburn basically beat him. Clayburn was really, really talented. And so I'm like, okay, I want to read more about this guy that was able to kind of stand his ground against Sherman. And so I bought this book by Craig Simmons, who's actually, he writes books about the Navy and the Civil War and all that, but he wrote one, actually I've got it right here. It's called Stonewall of the West. And it's not lost cause-y at all. It's a very balanced biography. He tells it like it is, but I wanted to learn more about him. And then I just became very fascinated with this guy who came over from Ireland when he was, I think, 19 years old, settles in Cincinnati. Some of his brothers settle in Wisconsin and they fight for the North. But then Clayburn ends up, he works for a pharmacy. He had wanted to be a doctor and he couldn't go to school in Ireland to become that because he never learned Latin, and you had to know Latin at that time to be a doctor. So he became a pharmacist when he came over to America, and he's working at this pharmacy in Cincinnati. And the guy that owns the pharmacy says, I'm opening one in Helena, Arkansas, of all places. Can you go down and manage it for me? So Clayburn moved down there, and that was the first time he felt home. And he'd served in the British Army, so he was already a soldier. He's obviously not West Point educated, but when the Civil War broke out, so prior to that, he became a lawyer. When the Civil War broke out, he decided to fight for the South, obviously, and he rose up through the ranks pretty quickly. And he's so different from the Stonewall Jacksons of the Civil War. Like, just really, he's a cool person to study. I mean, I obviously do not agree with what he was fighting for, but also the other interesting thing about him is that he writes up this emancipation for the slaves to put them into the Confederate Army. And he presents it to this group, including Joseph Johnston. And Joseph Johnson says, okay, dude, this is near treasonous and you could be killed for this. So it does not supposedly leave that room. Well, someone managed to take it to Jeff Davis because they had a vendetta against Clayburn. Davis reads it, hides it in his office, and it's not found until years after Clayburn had been killed at Franklin, and nobody knew about it until years later. So he's a really interesting study. And like I said, he's so different from the other Confederate generals. And he was an all around, like, it seems like he was a nice guy. Like, there was an instance where this one Union officer had been taken prisoner and he had food in his pocket. So Clayburn's men bring him and say, he's got food, tell him to give it to us. And Clayburn just looks at the guy and says, do you want to give up your food for my men? And the officer says, if it's all the same to you, I'd like to keep it. I'm kind of hungry. And Clayburn just said, okay, you can keep it. So he's very respectful. He actually was engaged right before he died. And then he never got married, but she ended up marrying a Confederate officer, but she died like 3 years later or something.
There's a lot of that. Guys like
yeah,
Reynolds
there was a lot of that, but yeah. that's why I'm into Claiborne, and I do think that he would have been the type of guy to come around and see the light and really be like Longstreet and help out with Reconstruction to try and bring the country back together.
He got his fast kicked at Franklin, unfortunately.
His fast. Yeah, there's quite a few. Jim's seen Office Space. That's a good one.
Office Space is a great movie, but in all seriousness, if you haven't seen The Office, check it. It's just a great TV show. I mean, you think of like great American TV shows, and I know it's theoretically British, whatever, but Cheers, Archie Bunker, The Office, this Seinfeld. There are certain TV shows that you just gotta watch. And he mentions the Pizza Hut over there with Claire. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Andrea asked, Claiborne has such a huge following. How hard did he subscribe to the Lost Cause stuff? He did pretty hard. If you read some of his writings, he did. But then you look at him wanting to emancipate the slaves and basically saying, if we get rid of this slavery thing, then Britain might recognize us. So he, I think, being Irish, did not fully understand what they were fighting for at all. He thought that they could be an independent nation without slavery, and
he was right. Claiborne was 100% right, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you did have certain. I mean, even before the Emancipation Proclamation, you had like the Louisiana Guard fighting black soldiers for the North. You had some. It was kind of very under the radar things, but they really missed the boat with that. They really did. Mm-hmm. Claiborne was 100% right with that. Yeah. Because, but you know what? I think Jefferson Davis, he'd come back and said, well, if we do that, then what are we fighting for? What is this all about? And it just proves these people who say that the war wasn't about slavery. This is where it disproves them completely. When you have the opportunity to have these black soldiers fighting for you, and you turn it down and you say because it would defeat the point of why we're fighting.
Yep, and at that point, Claiborne,
that ends it. That's it.
And that's ultimately what ends Claiborne getting any more command, because he's obviously more talented than Hood. But he shot himself in the foot with that. Like, I think if he had not issued that, he probably would have been in charge instead of Hood.
Yeah, I mean, Claiborne was a guy who probably should. It's a shame he died at Franklin. It really is, because at that point it was all over.
Yeah,
but he could have been a guy like a Mosby or a Longstreet who could have been a big factor in the post-Civil War world as far as the government goes. But again, that's just that. Unfortunately, that's the way it was. Andrea says, what's with the fast food chains and battlefields, KFC and Gettysburg? Well, Andrea, the KFC is the Kentucky Monument in Gettysburg. That's the state monument. So that's Colonel Sanders' monument at the Battle of Gettysburg, right there on Steinwehr. So that's why KFC is there. If you really want to know,
yeah. Also, another cool thing about Claiborne, he had a pet raccoon, which is hilarious. He participated in Joseph Johnston. It was during the winter and things were kind of quiet. Obviously, it snowed wherever they were, and a lot of them had never seen snow. And Joseph Johnston organized a snowball fight. Mm-hmm. You look at Joseph Johnston's picture and you're like, that dude would not have fun, but he organizes a snowball fight.
Well, you know what's so funny is we talked about this last time too. Joseph Johnston, there are so many parallels with George McClellan as far as personality. Both were guys who, were very popular with their soldiers, who are both fired for being non-aggressive, right?
Yeah.
And so you could draw an interesting parallel between the two. But that's, but again, the bullet that hit him on May 31st or whatever it was in 1862 that led to Lee taking over at Fair Oaks on June 1st, 1862, that changed the whole game plan for the Confederacy. Mm-hmm. But again, he was somebody who, he was still one of the, April 26th is when he surrendered to Sherman.
Yeah.
His army at the.
It was around. No,
it was the same day that John Wilkes Booth died.
Yeah, and it was like Sherman was the one that had to tell Johnson that Lincoln had been assassinated, and Johnson just said, "This is the worst thing that could have possibly happened."
A lot of them felt that way,
There's a few comments here. Ryan had a really so Ryan said Irish people are very loyal to their countries or their counties. Having been accepted by Arkansas, Claiborne might have felt that loyalty override anything else without any more detailed understanding of the cause. I think that's the case. Just reading from him, he seemed like that's why I think had Claiborne stayed in Cincinnati, he would have fought for the North because he was loyal to wherever he was. But he was always kind of this guy who I don't know how at home he felt in Ireland. And I think he felt like he was a bit of a failure because he couldn't get into medical school. So then he joined the British Army, and then he goes over to the US, and he finally finds home in Arkansas. And I think that's where it was. It was that, just that kind of that loyalty thing without understanding what exactly they were fighting for. And then Jim said, so someone asked why OO didn't get more credit for forming the Union position at Gettysburg. Right?
Well, oh God, here we go. Here we go.
Right?
You just put out the Mary Bat signal. I mean, this is, we've talked about that a million friggin' times. And you know what? You know, O.O. Howard, you know, he takes over for Reynolds after Reynolds is killed on the first day of the Battle of Gettysburg. And he's told he's on top of the Fahnestock House. He's told he's in command. And now he has to maintain, you know, he wisely determines that Cemetery Hill is the focal place, but he still has to maintain the battle, which is going on north of the town, which is by the McLean Barn, all the way down. And he gets ripped for not being in all 10 places at once, apparently, until Hancock arrives. He deserves so much credit at Gettysburg. There's that really good story. If anybody's been down there, I'm sure most people have, but where the 1863 hotel is now, so picture East Cemetery Hill. There's a stone wall, right, that separates the parking lot from East Cemetery Hill. Picture that still grass going all the way down heading towards where Mr. G's ice cream is now. Let's talk about urban renewal. He tells a private, take the flag and take it to that next wall, which is down where the hotel is now. And the guy goes, fuck you, I'm not doing it. There's friggin' dudes over there shooting at me. And he goes, I'll do it. This is Howard. So he grabs the flag with his one arm and says, I'll do it with you. And he walks down and plants the flag. I always thought that was a cool story. It reminds you a lot of this. It reminds you a lot of the story too, of Little Round Top a little bit later on, where a similar story happens with a different general. But it's basically, he deserves way more credit than he gets, and he gets shit on all over, left and right, for Chancellorsville. And you know what? He makes a mistake at Chancellorsville, but again, he's under orders from Sickles that these dudes are retreating, and that's what he's going with.
Yep, and miscommunication.
It's a mistake.
So
but I think he redeemed himself at Gettysburg, and there are other podcasts that are going to say he didn't do well at Gettysburg. And you know something? Hey, they're wrong. Because I think for the most part, he did a great job at Gettysburg.
I think he did too.
Right? And he redeems himself again at a place later on at the March of the Sea. So I like Howard. I know Mary loves Howard.
I love Howard. He's my favorite general, just because
it's all about the crescent moon, right?
Yep. Timo, he's also, you know, he's my favorite general because he just does not have a voice. I mean, I'd love to write a book about him someday because, I mean, much as I love Sherman and Grant, they've got people that have written books for them, and men like O.O. and even Thomas, they don't have a voice, and they need that voice to tell their stories. Because the other thing with Chancellorsville too is to look at who is writing what. That's true.
What?
That buffet is nothing better than
it's right there.
God, where was I going with that? Lost my train of thought.
I don't know. Andrea knocked us off track with the buffet.
Oh well, whatever. It's fine. No, I was talking about just talking about Howard, and you know, just how he doesn't have that voice in history like Grant and Sherman do. Thomas doesn't have that voice either.
So Mary, who is the braver person? The soldier at the end of the line at Little Round Top, or the person who has lunch at Pickett's Buffet and then goes drinking at the Reliant Mine afterwards? Who is more braver?
I don't know. We'll have to put that theory to the test. That's what we're going to do.
Pickett's Buffet. I'm all. You have a great time.
No, I am not going there. I'm not going there. There's not enough vaccinations in the world right now that I could get to protect me.
It'll put you away from
I'll do the mine where I'll start my bar fight. Where I'll say Howard was right and First Corps retreated first.
You'd be like, the First Corps retreated first.
Yep.
And you're gonna walk out, and I'm gonna be stuck in there.
Bye, fucker.
See you later.
But no, like O.O. definitely, like you say, definitely deserves more credit. The thing,
he does.
I know what I was going to say. The thing too with Chancellorsville to remember is that this is at the time O.O. has recently taken over the 11th Corps, which is a nearly all German regiment. A lot of his officers are German. Howard's not German. And there's also at the time when they limit beer rations, and Howard also doesn't want them to drink because he's Christian. He's against that. But the people writing these after battle reports, like von Gilsa, they shit all over Howard. You know.
You know what though? Von Gilsa he did a good job at East Cemetery Hill on July 2nd.
Oh, he does. Yeah, he does.
He did. He did. I mean,
but what the way he speaks, I think he probably threw Howard under the bus a little bit more at Chancellorsville than what he needed to.
Well, again, it's the whole blame game with them.
Oh, yeah.
Howard deserves a lot more credit than he really, really did. There's no question about it. Anyway.
Ryan said, one of these days I must sit down and look at West Point rankings against Civil War performance. Carney went through a phase of thinking that shooting a number of West Pointers, starting with McClellan, would do wonders for the Union cause. Allie thought that was a great idea. I mean, Sherman was pretty high in his class, I think 6, but then I think Grant was about middle. Custer was in last place in his class. That would be a good list to compare. Yeah, Pickett was last too. Jim, you can eat KFC and look over Pickett's charge.
You know who was last in the class of 1861 was Custer.
Yeah, that was just mentioned. If
you know who was first in that class?
Oh, I should know.
Class of 1861, Patty O'Rourke. Patty O'Rourke.
Oh, yeah. That's
the
right.
best and worst of the class of 1861.
Nice.
I don't think he mentioned Custer. I think he mentioned Pickett.
No, he mentioned Custard, and I mentioned
I thought he mentioned
was
Pickett.
The last in his class. No, it was Custer.
I'm going to take the win anyway. I'm going to take the win.
Why don't you just go fucking back and read the record?
I'm going to sit over here and just be right, Mary. So, Andrea, maybe the question we asked, who's crazier, Sickles or the guy who eats at Pickett's and goes to the mine? Everyone who does all those think they're making the right decision at the time. I think both are going to get you killed if you do it.
Yeah, well, Weeks, we're going to the fucking mine.
I'll go to the mine with you. I have no problem going to the mine. I ain't going to Pickett's, though. Fuck
that. I'm not going to fucking Pickett's. Fuck that. I don't even know if I'll go back to the Lincoln Diner after the experience I had there last time.
That bathroom at the Lincoln Diner.
That's exactly it. I walked down there and I'm like, what am I going to pick up and bring back home and possibly cause an outbreak in my country? Funny, I had that thought 2 years before COVID.
I'm all set with, I love the Lincoln Diner. The food's really good, but I was there a few months ago and it was so bad. It just
the food wasn't that great. The food wasn't that great when I was there.
You know what's good is West End Diner, which is down by John Burns' house.
Okay.
Right by the Mead School. There's a really good breakfast diner on there that no one goes to. That's where the locals in Gettysburg go, and the tourists go to Lincoln Diner. So sometimes we go to West End.
Let's go to West End when we're there.
Oh,
let's be locals, Weeks.
Come on, get up. It's time to go. Fuck you. I'm hungry.
Fuck it.
Tommy's Pizza for lunch. Tommy's Pizza is really, really, really good. I love Tommy's Pizza.
And Jim said the Franklin battlefield was entirely built over with urban sprawl. It's only been in the last 15 years or so when the Franklin Battlefield Trust and the American Battlefield Foundation started buying up the properties, tearing down the buildings, and restoring them to 1864 appearance. They've made a huge amount of progress, but there's still very much to do.
I love the American Battlefield Trust, but I will tell you right now, the biggest mistake they made, without a doubt, is tearing down the old Lee Headquarters Hotel. And I'll say this till the day I die. That was the best hotel to stay in town. And that hotel had a lot of history in itself. Marilyn Monroe stayed at that hotel one time. They should have torn it down for just another stop on the rest stop. And it's cool to see it when you drive by, but I love that hotel. I really miss it. Andrew, Lincoln Diner, very tasty, but yes, the backdoor trots. It's probably the bathroom. Probably the bathroom's the way it is. But God,
perfect.
But it is a cool place to go. Of course, the first time I went there, I go, "Can I get a booth?" And they go, "Oh, you never heard that joke before here before." Getting a booth at the Lincoln Diner.
I did really, that really too, but I did it around the wrong person.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But too many booths, exactly. But go to West End Diner. If you're in Gettysburg, so Jim, if you're in Gettysburg, it sounds like you are, bastard. Go to West End Diner for breakfast because it is really, really good. It's right down by there's a strip mall that's right down. So if you are driving down if you're on Chambersburg Pike and you're going towards Chambersburg, you get to the intersection where the Mead School is. Take that left right where John Burns' house was. Take that hard left and it's right there on the right. It's really, really good. It's probably the best breakfast in town is West End Diner. Way better than Lincoln.
Jonathan said, "Thank you for the Civil War ramble. Civil War Breakfast Club makes Saturdays even better." Well, thank you very much. And thank you for everybody who's jumped on here. This is always a great time. They just keep getting better and better. Allie said Johnson and Davis also hated each other. No love lost there. Yeah, that was another. Yeah. And Jim seconds what Jonathan had said. Yeah, thank you. What are you giggling about now, Weeks?
Just, dude, I don't know.
Me again? Are you making fun of me? Are you
No,
finding more
I'm
stuff to
not.
bust me over later?
No, I'm not. I am not. Mary, nothing but high respect for you, Fincher. Nothing. The Avenue at Gettysburg used to be so good. You know what though? It's funny because it's open, it's closed, it's open, it's closed. I was never a big fan of the Avenue. It was okay. It was pretty good though, but it was pretty solid. But there's a lot of good restaurants in town that you go. The Fourscore, if you haven't been to Fourscore Brewery, that's the best beer place there is in town now. Blue and Gray is still the king of food though.
Yeah, well, the first place we're going is Dobbin House.
Oh, Dobbin House, the basement of Dobbin's house with the candles and
Yeah.
they have the best. It's like a gingerbread thing, like a
Mhm.
dessert. They have it's really really good there.
Yeah, I might get dessert for once, actually.
Of course you will.
Yep, definitely. Indulge a little bit. Why not?
Yeah, why not? Live the life. Live the
Yep.
life, Mary. Live the life. Yeah, the
I'm
Avenue's
gonna need
closed.
it if I'm
The
gonna be
Avenue's
walking
always
around the
closed.
battlefield.
It's always closed. Whenever I go to the Avenue, it's always closed. Oh, it is.
Andrea said that bit about Johnson at Sherman's funeral breaks my heart. Yeah, where he has his hat off and it's raining and someone says you need to put your hat on, you could catch your death of cold, and Johnson's like, if he were here, he wouldn't be wearing his hat.
I'm not. You know what though? I think that story's a little bit of folklore though. I mean, I think it's a
Why did
great
he
story, but
say that?
you know, I'm the idea of him taking his hat off and then getting a cold leads to pneumonia. I mean, it sounds great, but I wonder if he was going to get it anyway. I don't know.
But that's just, it's, you know what, were they both Masons?
I don't think so.
Wasn't
Not that I
Sherman
know
a
of.
Mason?
What's that?
Wasn't Sherman a Mason?
Sherman was. I don't think
Was
Johnson was
Johnson?
though.
You should look
I
that
don't
up and
believe
see.
so.
Maybe that was something to do with it.
I'll
I
get
don't know.
right on that.
I like.
I'll get right on that, Mary. I don't.
Fucker.
You know, they may have been, but I'm not sure why. It very well could be true, but it sounds really really good. But when are we coming to Gettysburg? Good question, Jim. Good question. Talk to Justin Trudeau about that.
Yeah, when the border opens.
Um,
When the border opens, and
You
when
know.
when the border opens and it's safe for me to travel, I will definitely be going. Right now, I can't leave my country, so. And that's
Stop ruining good stories there. I'm not saying it's not true at all. I just think it's I think it's one of those funny.
Ryan said Claiborne was poor and Protestant, so not at home in Ireland because of mismatched class and religion. Yeah, that's probably the case. I think that's
Yeah,
right.
could be Joe. And I'm not saying that story with Johnston and Sherman's not true. I just think it's a very nice story. I just don't know. Who knows? You know?
I think it probably is because they were very good friends.
He definitely died not far afterwards, but
Yep.
if that's how he got it, who knows? Who knows? I've heard it before, but it very well could be.
It's like the story of Sheridan's funeral when Sherman is left standing at Sheridan's gravesite hours after everyone's left because he's realizing that he's the last of the trifecta.
Yeah, and it could look. You know what? Fine. You know what? It's true. Take it. 100%. It's true. Okay.
She says,
Get off my
"Stop
goddamn
it."
back. It's 100% true. Take it to the bank.
Allie says Grant does pretty well in math. He actually wanted to be a math teacher at West Point after the Mexican-American War. Oh yeah, Pickett is awful. I think Longstreet was second to last in his class. I think he was, wasn't he?
He was. I don't know if he was second. He was pretty low though. I don't think he was second to last though. But it's so funny though. You look at some of these guys. I mean, you know, Pickett was near the bottom. Obviously, you mentioned Custer near the bottom. You know, you mention the fact that someone Sherman, he finished sixth, but should have been fourth if not for the demerits. I knocked him down.
Yep, less than.
So
he got 50 every year he was there. He was 50 away from being expelled.
Yeah. I mean, look right, Jubal early with, you know, the whole pie plate, Armistead. There's all kinds of cool stories.
Oh, yeah.
It's a neat part of the history. So,
yeah. Leonard said McPherson was top of his class, did fairly well until his death in Atlanta.
Ooh, that's too soon
for you, Mary.
It's tough one.
And then Leonard said, of course, his death opened the door for OO, much to Mayor's delight. That's very true. It much to the chagrin of Blackjack Logan, who did a smear campaign against Sherman for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Because Blackjack wasn't West Point educated, and he believed that Sherman had only chosen OO because he was West Point educated. I don't think that was the case.
I think there was a lot of West Point favoritism. I didn't actually. I mean, why wouldn't there be? Of course there'd be.
Yeah, there
but
was,
I mean,
but I don't think that's the main reason why Sherman chose him, because Hooker
No, I'm not saying that
Hooker
at
was
all. I'm just
higher
saying
in rank.
I think
Hooker
there is
got pissed
favoritism.
too about
You
that.
wonder if a Howard had gone to West Point instead of Bowdoin.
Howard did go to
How,
West Point.
no, who am I talking about then?
Logan.
You talking about Logan or Howard?
Logan didn't go to West Point. Howard did.
Howard went to Bowdoin.
Yeah, Howard went to West Point, I think.
He went to Bowdoin. Maybe I'm mistaken. I'm pretty sure he went to Bowdoin.
You know what? Maybe you're right.
Oh, look at that.
Or maybe I'm thinking he taught at West Point. I know he did teach at West Point.
Okay. Boy, this is a full
Right.
Brockenbrough retreat.
United States Military Academy.
He went to both then. I know he went to Bowdoin because I know he has a military thing up in Bowdoin.
Yep.
He has
oh my God! Did I just know something you didn't?
No, I guess we're both right. But I know he went to Bowdoin because I've been up to Bowdoin. And there's a bunch of Howards up at Bowdoin.
Well, yeah, he did go to Bowdoin. So let's see what it says here about him. Yep, military academy. So he graduated from Bowdoin in 1850 at the age of 19. And then he attended the United States Military Academy, graduated in 1854, fourth in his class of 46
So he went to both. Okay, so we're
Yep.
both right then. I knew he went to Bowdoin specifically. Yep. I think of Howard. I think of Bowdoin specifically. This
yep.
New England.
Well, I don't know. There you go. You learned something from me for once.
But there you go. Oh, that's me too. Okay, look at that. But I think Kamala went to Howard. I do know because I know he's looked upon with Chamberlain and Howard a big fish at Bowdoin.
Mm-hmm. Andrea said Sherman felt terrible about not letting McPherson go home for a few days to get married. Was killed not too long after that. Yeah, Sherman really regretted that decision because it could have saved his life. He wouldn't have been at the Battle of Atlanta.
Yeah, he's not. I mean, we talked before. He's another guy who certainly would have gone far. I think both McPherson.
Your internet's cutting out again.
That's his name. Blank on right now. No, is it?
Yep.
You can say whatever I want then. You can't hear me then.
Were you on the right internet today?
Yeah, as far as I know, I am. Mm-hmm.
Just look and see who else is here. Apparently, Maria says the Avenue in Gettysburg used to be so good, but it's closed. O'Rourke's.
Well, we were saying a few minutes ago. It's the Avenue right there is like it's open and it's closed and it's open and it's closed. I don't know what the deal's with the ownership there, but they keep selling it or what. But it comes and goes all the time. You know. What?
Allie, I'm pretty sure Howard went to West Point.
Well, he went to both. I mean,
But you're like, he didn't go to West Point. He just went to Bowdoin.
Well, I knew he went to Bowdoin. I mean, Bowdoin's where I've always considered his graduate. Bowdoin considers him one of their best alumni. So.
Ryan said, call back to figures who died before their potential became known. Charles, Ferguson, Smith. Both Sherman and Grant thought they'd finish the war serving under Smith. I think he may have been their commandant of cadets at West Point. Yeah, Howard graduates a year after McPherson and then takes his place. So that's interesting too.
Yeah.
No, Howard's one of the younger ones in the Civil War.
Well, how old was he when he was
on the March to the Sea?
I don't know. I knew he lived a long life, but I mean, when he was in Gettysburg, he was probably 30s, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was born in. His birthday was just the other day, 1830.
Well, it's amazing to think of a guy like McClellan was mid-30s at Antietam.
Yeah.
How young these guys actually were. We hold them to a different standard, I think, with a lot of these cases where it's like a lot of these guys where, you assume that these generals nowadays are older. Mm-hmm. Like Schwarzkopf and these dudes here, but these guys are pretty young. I mean, I think Rufus Dawes was 24 at Gettysburg. Mm-hmm. He was born on July 4th, and he would have been 25 if he lived, which he did.
Claiborne was 37 when he died.
Yeah, so these are all young guys. I mean, these are all relatively young guys,
So on the March to the Sea, Howard would have been 34 years old, and Slocum was 37. Because
I mean, these guys are.
Sherman wrote in his memoirs that they were young. Because
Mhm.
Sherman's in his mid 40s by that point.
Yeah. That goes to show. It goes to show. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's a different world. You know. But that's how it is. So,
Mhm.
but, you know, it is what it is. It is what it is. But
Allie said that's my favorite bit in Grant's memoirs was when he was like, I don't want to go, and his dad was like, nah, you're going, and Grant's like, and then I had to go. Narrator voice, and then he went.
and there you went. You know. Yeah. Allie's right though. The Gettysburg movie, Hood does look like in his 50s. I mean, that was Patrick. What's his name? The actor there.
Oh,
I saw him. I saw him.
I can't remember what his name is.
Whatever his name is. He went on a. I don't know if you know this, but he went on a real rant on Twitter after the election the other day.
Who's
the
that?
guy who played Hood,
Did he?
and like I guess he was on the losing side. Wasn't happy about it. It went on, but
Right.
he was kind of like he kind of went on a rant. It was. I guess he wasn't too happy about it, but
Wow.
Sherman's Patrick Gorman,
Patrick Gorman.
right? But I guess he wasn't. I guess he wasn't too happy with the election. But I guess too far to the right. I guess is his problem. But you know,
Laura just signed on. Happy Saturday, fam. Hey,
yeah,
Laura.
good to see you, Laura. Always
Laura?
a pleasure. It's great to see you on here.
Ryan said Oliver attended Monmouth Academy in Monmouth, North Yarmouth Academy in Yarmouth, Kent Hills High School, Kent Hill School in Redfield, and graduated from Bowdoin in 1850 at the age of 19.
He was a solid Mainer.
Yep. But his family hailed from Mass. I'm not going to say the full name.
You can't say Massachusetts, Mary. That's your problem.
Can't.
You know.
Just can't.
But Howard's a guy. He's revered.
Heckman's on.
Oh, hey John. Good to see you, pal. But you know, Howard is a guy. Think about the Maine people at the Civil War. Is they're really revered up there, whether it be Chamberlain or Howard or
Hooker.
any of these people. What's that?
Hooker, although he's buried in Cincinnati.
Well, Hooker was a Mass guy, not a Maine guy.
Well, whatever. I was thinking New England.
No. Okay.
Sorry.
What Jesus. What I'm saying is Maine really, and it's funny. John is on. He actually jumped on just as I was thinking about this. Is you know the 20th Maine gets a lot of credit as they should for things like Gettysburg, but the 16th Maine really doesn't get the credit they deserve.
No.
I mean, they really don't, because I mean you could have made the Gettysburg movie about Charles Tilden, 16th Maine at Oak Hill in the Wills Woods right there, or Sheeds Woods, or anything who you ask over there. It would have been just as good. They really did a great job. And so Maine really deserves more credit in the Civil War, whether it be the 16th, whether it be the 19th, whether it be the 20th, whether it be the 17th Maine, the 3rd Maine, the 4th Maine. They had a whole bunch, especially at Gettysburg. There's a lot of Maine people. And if you go up to Maine, they, unlike states like Massachusetts, where I live here, they really embrace the Civil War history up there. You can really visit a lot of cool places that specifically talk about what that regiment did in that town. In Howard's a guy they really embrace up there in Maine, as is Chamberlain specifically.
Yeah. Oh, I embrace Howard.
16th Maine, baby. Yep, you got it, John. 16th Maine, Team Tilden.
But that's what's awesome.
About that the other night.
But that's what's awesome about studying the Civil War, is kind of finding these underdogs that don't get talked about as much, but that had, you know, a bigger impact than what people might realize, right?
Well, I think it's all conjecture at the time. I mean, you look at, and I think a lot of it is because of the movie. They assume that Chamberlain, and I'm not going to rip on the 20th Maine by any stretch of imagination or Chamberlain, but I think because of the movie, they get a lot more credit than they really should.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about what the 16th did over Oak Hill, whether you talk about what the 17th did or the 19th did, but this is, we're talking just Gettysburg, just that. What they did on the 2nd of July to slow down, Tig Anderson and slow down Ambrose Wright and those guys coming across on the second day of that enfilade battle at Gettysburg, they deserve a lot more credit than they do. And I've been on the 16th Maine for years, on Team Tilden, but no one cares. No one. It's like that scene in Jurassic Park. Hey, everyone, look! See, no one cares. See, that's how it's been with the 16th Maine. I think if a lot of people have focused, and since John is on, I will tell you, we talked about before, if we could write a book, a book who wasn't really focused on it, for me, it would be Tilden, because he has a great story, a great one of those American people who ultimately doesn't get the credit he does because popular culture doesn't really focus on him. you know?
Yep.
And again, people take that as anti-Joshua Chamberlain, because for some reason
It's
you can't
not.
have both, but you can have both. But I think more focus is to put on people like that who weren't really in the focus of it. And that's why I say read that Abner Small book,
Mhm.
who fought in the 16th Maine, because it gives you a great visual and a great picture of what that regiment did, not just at Gettysburg, where they did in all the battles. And I think that's your homework assignment, Finchers. You got to read Road to Richmond by Small, the 16th Maine, because it really needs more credit than it
So
really
that's
does. It
three
really does.
books I'm buying today, one of which is one of your birthday gifts.
That's fine. But I'll tell you right now, if you think Chamberlain is more instrumental than Tilden at Gettysburg, I don't know what to tell you. I just don't know what to tell you because it's not true.
I don't. That's the thing.
Okay.
Look,
I'm all dangerous right now. You got me going about Tilden versus Chamberlain. But what I'm saying is that it's a great story that not enough people really need to learn and not know about, but really learn about. That whole Robinson's division at Gettysburg needs to really, really get a lot more focus. And do you know that when George Meade wrote his post-battle story, he didn't even mention anything about Robinson's division?
wow.
He didn't, not a word. There was no mention of Tilden, no mention of Gabriel Paul, no mention of Baxter. None of those guys. It was all specific on everything else. So,
Allie said you're about to explode over this.
Oh, yeah, I get going on this. I get going.
But the thing is, like, you're talking to me like I'm a Chamberlain fangirl.
No, I'm just saying. You know why? Because John jumped on it, got me all thinking about it. But the thing about it is you really got to focus on some of these other ones that aren't in the movie. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, well, and I think that's what we're trying to do with this podcast too, is we're trying to put the focus on, like, I'll get Darren fired up. Yeah, fuck John, do you ever? Now I have to deal with that for the rest of the day.
Andrew, his name is Abner Small, okay? Abner. He wrote a book called The Road to Richmond, which is his diary. He's in the 16th Maine Regiment. It's the best single first-hand diary ever written of the Civil War. And,
you heard it here.
Yes, John got me fired up, no doubt about it.
And I just told John that now I have to deal with that for the rest of the day and possibly the weekend. Thank God I got lots of beer in the house.
You better hope BC wins today. I'll tell you that right now.
Oh, God, or I'm going to be the emotional support Canadian again.
Between the anticipated loss today and the Patriot loss tomorrow to Baltimore, I mean, I'm going to be a dick tomorrow.
What am I going to do with you?
I don't know. But in all seriousness, I joke about it. But but check that out, though, because it's really important to study these people. And Tilden's story is a great story.
Mm-hmm.
It is. You can make a legit Saving Private Ryan's movie like good movie about Charles Tilden if you really wanted to.
You should write a book about Tilden.
Maybe I will. Maybe that's what I'll do, Mary.
I think you should.
And we'll have our friend Jen do the illustration. You can write the intro to it.
Yep. And I'll write an illustrated biography about Oliver Otis Howard.
Exactly. But definitely study more about Tilden. Tilden's the man.
Yeah. Jim's going to explore the Rose Farm. Have a great day. Thanks for stopping by, Jim, and we'll be sure
Jim,
to
I tell you to watch out for that clown that's in those woods. I'll tell you that right now.
Allie B. As I've learned from New England, wicked is a must in the vocabulary. Yeah.
Did I say wicked?
I think John did.
Oh, okay.
No, he didn't. Someone must have said it. I think you did say it. You got all fired up. You've also probably had 70,000 beers so far.
3 beers, Mary. You know, so what I call in Canada Tuesday morning. You know,
I'm drinking out of pint-sized cans here. Like, look at this.
So small ones.
Hold that up again. That's not a pint, fucker.
It's not. It's but anyway. But in all seriousness, though, it's important to study the minutia. I think, as it tells the bigger story.
Yeah.
And anybody can read the Grant memoirs and work your way down, but really, what you want to do is read the Small one and work your way back up again.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned the Small diary a billion times, and I don't get any royalties for mentioning it. I just think I think it can give you the best picture of what those dudes actually dealt with from the bottom side up, small picture up, by reading that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And yes, I have fun with my Maine friends who think that Joshua Chamberlain died for our sins, okay, when they talk about him. But I just think that there are bigger pictures. I do think Tilden's a bigger deal. And I think anybody who really studies it really knows that. And that's why you got to study it.
You know, my favorite Maine is always going to be O.O. Howard.
Oh, he's another O.O. Howard. He's great, you know.
Jim says, I love the smaller microhistory of the war. There are so many great individuals with great stories, and so many of them get ignored by publishers because the big names and the big battles are known drivers for book sales. Yeah, that's very true, and that's a sad thing. Like, because as we learned with Battle of Ball's Bluff, it doesn't really get discussed much, but the ramifications of that battle with the Joint Committee and the Congress for War are far-reaching until the end of the Civil War.
Well, I think every battle leads to a different thing. I mean, a lot of people think it goes from Bull Run, right through to, to Antietam, to Fredericksburg, to Chancellorsville, to Gettysburg, and that's it. That's how, but, as Ken Burns said, it was fought in 10,000 places. It's all those little battles in between that set up the bigger battles. And if you don't know a Kernstown or a Monocacy or a Ball's Bluff or any of those small ones that took place, and by small I mean just those ones that aren't as popular.
Yeah.
Winchester, for example. All these little places, Stones River, Glorietta Pass. They all tell a story that lead to a bigger picture.
Exactly.
And you can't learn the full big picture without learning the smaller pictures. That's all we're saying. It's just it's just more fun to read about the smaller ones anyway.
Yeah. Scott said, "Hey, kind of late joining this morning. I've been working all morning. What did I miss?"
Scott.
Andrea, a bunch of luscious. Yep.
Andrews want to talk. Okay.
Leonard said, "Did OO mess up at Chancellorsville?"
Wow. Where's my popcorn? I'm just going to sit here and watch Mary go off on this one.
Yeah, I think, okay, I'll be honest. I think OO did make some mistakes at Chancellorsville, but so did Hooker.
Of course it did.
I mean, communication was such a clusterfuck. But Andrea, Howard.
Oh, and you're going to get yourself stabbed.
No.
Watch out.
No, I mean, Howard's record is not completely clean. He made mistakes, but so did Jackson. Jackson got fucking stuck in a tree and he messed up at Kernstown, right? Sherman made mistakes. Chickasaw Bluffs. They all did. But the thing is how they're remembered. Howard is remembered, people say Chancellorsville. No one looks at the story you told Darren about the flag at Gettysburg. No one looks to him being the Western Theater, and he's part of the right wing for the March to the Sea. He is, him and Slocum had a challenging time on that, being those commanders, but Sherman is choosing them because they are calm and collected. They're going to follow the orders, and they're not going to do any crazy thing like what Black Jack Logan might have done, or even Joseph Hooker. They're not going to read the orders they're given and say, you know what? I'm just going to do my own thing on this. He knew they would follow orders because Howard didn't agree with the foraging, and he didn't agree with the burning of buildings. I think because of his faith in Christianity and all that was just something he didn't want to see done.
Well, that's the selective historic memories a million times. Sherman doesn't get blamed for Chickasaw or Kennesaw. He doesn't.
Yeah.
He just let it go, right?
Yeah, Leonard, I was just yanking your chain. I know.
But Sherman, he's known as aggressive and he wins, but he was a guy who made his chops on flanking and not attacking the front. He would always skirt, right?
Yeah, look what he does look what he does at Kennesaw.
Kennesaw, he has his frontal assault at Cheatham's Hill and gets his ass pounded, right?
Yeah. And
pounded.
Who's he up against? Who's he up against at the worst point? Claiborne.
Right.
And the men are basically aiming their rifles down like this, like they were. It's like Kennesaw is just like Marye's Heights, right? They're like this, like.
Marye's Heights made a little more sense strategically, but Cheatham Hill made no sense. But he doesn't get held up to that standard of being a failure, and I think it's because, maybe he just doesn't have the retreat, right? But Chickasaw was pretty bad at Vicksburg. It kind of was. But, that's the way it was.
Chickasaw was horrible. Like, Sherman didn't have the proper maps, which we'll come back to haunt him at Missionary Ridge when he ends up on Billy Goat Hill.
But again, he learns from that in his March to the Sea with his maps, with the census maps, Georgia. So he did learn from his mistakes that he made. But I think, I think everyone needs to be held to the same standard. A lot of people don't in the Civil War. They get held to different standards. And that's, for some reason, gets a shit into the stick, and he always has. I don't know why.
Does, so does Hooker, Sickles to some extent as well. Andrea asked, best bio on Howard. There's not really many.
It's going to be the one by Mary Fincher. That's going to be the best buyer. That's going to be the book. She's going to write that book, and it's going to be awesome.
I might write a book on Howard someday.
Just make sure there's no math in it. You'd be fine.
He actually wrote, you could Google Oliver Otis Howard memoirs. Those are really good to read. I'm working my way through those. There's a book about him and his experiences with the Nez Perce Indians, which I'm just going to Google it really quickly right
There's
now.
one pretty good book on Howard that went by that's halfway decent that you were talking about not too long ago.
His memoirs are good.
But there was one somebody wrote about him.
Yeah.
That wasn't too bad. I
I'm just looking it
haven't
up.
read it, but maybe you I think you said you read it.
Yeah, there's his autobiography. Well, of course, I Googled the wrong fucking thing. Oh, Thunder in the Mountains,
That's
which
what
is
it was.
about, Thunder in the Mountains. I have the audiobook. I need to listen to it soon. But yeah, Thunder in the Mountains is one as well that I think is pretty good about him. It's more his experience post-Civil War.
Well, he has his own issues post Civil War, obviously.
Leonard said, I have grown to appreciate OO due to your fangirling, forcing me to look at him closer. That's, I guess, as funny as that is, that's one reason why Darren and I are doing this, you know.
Well, we kind of connected about Howard at some point, some long time ago. I forget how the hell that even happened, but
it was Howard that we kind of bonded over at first, I think.
I think so. I think that was a big part of it. You know, and I think, you know, I don't know, who knows why. I don't remember how it is years ago, but months ago, the frick it was. But
actually,
it seems like 100 years ago.
We've only been talking since May.
I know, it's amazing how time flies when you're having fun. Sure, but I think it's anything else. It's, you know, we've studied a lot of these people, both good and bad. It's fun to read some of this stuff.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, we go back before. We've had 100+ years to digest this stuff, and all this stuff happened literally on the fly, and so it's one of those things, you know.
Yep. Scott says same as at Billy Goat Hill and Tunnel Hill at Chattanooga, where Sherman messes up. And Andrea said, "Yep, didn't Sherman read the maps upside down?" It was something like that. Like the maps he had were shitty, and then he didn't read them right. And then I think Claiborne could see Sherman's troops, and he's like, "What the f is he doing over there?"
Truth.
And Claiborne's probably like, "Hey, fucker. Come get me now."
Nah, it's crazy.
In an Irish accent. Leonard said, trying to organize an army in a swamp and assault those bluffs, plain insanity. It was. And in end of December, early January, like, no thank you. Allie said, I think the wins outweigh the losses for a lot of people, but I also think people incorporate how much they actually like the general. Bias can be found everywhere, like in most things. That's true. Yeah. And
I just think there's a certain level when it comes to Civil War stuff where certain people are golden children and some people are flawed no matter what. You know, McClellan's a good example of that. Howard's a great example of that. There are some people, no matter what you do, you're going to be good. Some people, no matter what you're going to be flawed. If you go in the Civil War community and you mention Howard, okay, they're going to immediately focus on the negative.
Yeah.
No matter what he did positive. Versus if you do someone like a Sherman, it's going to be the opposite. And not saying one's better than the other. They're all different. It's just that it's funny how the standard is set on certain people.
Although,
and I think that's definitely one.
Weeks, I have found that since I first did my tweet about having Howard as a favorite general, when I got like basically like, what the fuck are you doing? I did one last week, and I got more positive responses. You know, people saying, I'm starting to look at him more now. Or people that didn't speak up before saying, yeah, he needs more credit for what he did. It's sad the way that we only look at him for Chancellorsville and not what happened in the Western Theater. John said, Mary will write a book on OO, but with funny spellings of words like favorite and defense. Go Canada. I will.
Yeah, and she'll write A after every freaking word.
Yep. And then Howard went to Bowdoin A, and then West Point A. Andrea said, whatever mistakes OO made during the war, he more than made up for his work during Reconstruction. Yeah, he was part of the
Freedmen's Bureau. I mean, it's huge what he did. Founding the Howard University, and there's a lot of stuff he did. But just look at the positives and the negatives. We're going to sit there and dismiss Chancellorsville? No, of course not. But we're going to define him by Chancellorsville? That's not fair either. It's got to be one. You can't have it both ways. So you have to
exactly. Yeah, like you can't because if you're going to, what do we call it? The OO scale of measuring greatness.
Well, the Howard scale we talked
The
about
Howard,
before,
the Howard scale,
where,
which
you
means
know,
we should judge Sherman by everything he did at Chickasaw and nothing that he did after that. And we should judge Jackson because he got stuck in a fucking tree.
well, but he also, I mean, this is a guy who, Howard Jackson's a guy who threatened to quit after the Valley campaign.
Yeah.
The governor of Virginia had to convince him to not quit.
Mhm.
I mean, he was not this, he wasn't this guy who walked on water either. He's a guy who the best thing that ever happened to him was dying. If you really think about it, no, seriously.
True. That's
He has
sadly
that
true.
He has that Kurt Cobain thing where he died early, and so he didn't get a chance to make mistakes going forward. The Kernstown thing was embarrassing for Jackson. It just isn't reported as well because he has that Jackson stigma.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And I've always said, and this is my unpopular bar fight argument, Claiborne was far better than Jackson.
I would agree with you.
Jackson should have been the Stonewall of the East.
And if for better, for worse, for fair, unfair, that's just the way it is.
Mhm.
But I think you can tell, like, when you make you of all people, because you go on Twitter, you light these torches and just open yourself to get ripped on.
I do.
But I think for the most part, I think it's good to take a stand, but I think you can tell who reads what based on the responses to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you'll go on there and mention something about Howard, and they'll sit there and go, "Oh, he runs away. His favorite his favorite phone service is Sprint." The stuff that you get from sometimes.
Meanwhile, in the March of the Sea, he's having to feint towards Macon, stretch his lines thin, has to construct a pontoon bridge when he could be under attack. And for 2 days, he's worried about what could happen because that could break the marge.
And I'm not going to sit there and rip on Jackson either. But no. I mean, there are a lot of people who are respected people who think the nickname Stonewall is an insult because they felt that he was slow and didn't move. That's why they call him a Stonewall. People think that General B gave him that nickname because it was some sort of hero. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But even that's disputed.
Yep.
But who knows?
Scott said, I think there was miscommunication between Sherman and Baldy Smith at Chattanooga. Yeah, there was. Andrea, Howard was your matchmaker.
Yeah, probably.
Scott, reading a book on First Bull Run right now, and it talks about Jeb Stuart befriending OO, and that on the surface seems like an odd couple. That does.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of that.
The diva and the Christian?
Yeah, right?
Wow. Well, I guess opposites attract, right?
Guess so.
There's a lot of the Howard scale of measuring greatness. Love it. That's what Allie B said. Yeah, if we go by that, there should be a lot of shitty generals.
Yeah, that's the true,
Yeah. Ryan said, love this. It was excellent. Never mind the Irish. There was a Scottish New York regiment with some men in tartan trews. Allie B, are you trying to tell me Jackson didn't walk on water and bless us all? Nonsense. That's good. I thought you were frozen for a second because you went.
No, I'm just reading the comments. They're coming fast and furious,
Andrea, I have such a problem with how much I praise Sherman. He was a badass during the war, total boss, but he was a violent racist, misogynist, and overall scumbag, the ultimate bro. Yeah, he was. And Andrea.
Wow. I wish she stopped beating around the bush and just tell how she means.
No, I agree with her. Andrea, if you want to read a really good biography about Sherman, Fierce Patriot by Robert L. O'Connell is really good. And it's laugh out loud funny. You will appreciate O'Connell's sense of humor.
I mean, Sherman's a guy he's a guy you got to take the politics out of it. And you know what, though? It's funny we say that because a lot of people we don't. I mean, people rip on guys like Forrest, who deservedly so because of what he was, but they also focus on the politics too, right?
Yeah. Sherman
was a racist. He certainly was. He was no angel when it came to a lot of his beliefs, but his job was to save the Union. That's all he cared about. And so you can't have it both ways at the same time. I mean, that's the regardless of the truth.
O'Connell puts it perfectly when he says that Sherman was literally the walking manifest destiny by the time the Civil War rolled around.
Well, he knew what he had to do, but again, you wonder how life could have been Sherman being in Louisiana when the war started, state fighting for the Confederacy. How about that for a what if?
Yeah, I don't think he ever would have done that though.
But he felt the South was his home though.
But he was loyal to the Union. That's the thing. If you look at how he saw himself as being West Point educated, he's loyal to the Union. and that's what he goes with, is that.
No, I'm not saying would have, but I'm saying what if he did though?
Yeah. Oh,
How history could have changed,
different.
right?
Heckman says, Mary, they don't want to talk about the March to the Sea. Makes them cry. Georgia barbecue is delicious.
Georgia barbecue is pretty good.
Ryan, at the risk of inciting Mary further, there is another Stonewall of the West, General John Stevens Bowen by Philip Thomas Tucker. Jim said, I think a better judge of Civil War performance would be, did they learn by their mistakes or did they repeat them? If General so-and-so made a mistake and learns from that mistake and doesn't make the same mistakes twice, they should be judged on their overall performance during the war and not just pegged to their mistakes. Yep. Oh, and Leonard's favorite general is Bowen.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And Andrea, I scored my new copy of Cherno's Grant at HPB, whatever that is, picked up a few books from the official records of the War of Rebellion and got the box set of Ken Burns Civil War. Wow.
Andrea.
Scott said, Jeb, according to this author, was just like OO, deeply religious, a teetotaler, and came from a not well-off family. They met at West Point, and Jeb befriended OO while OO was being shunned. I did not know that. I thought Jeb would have been a fucking drinker.
No, Jeb was a big religious guy. He was a big religious guy.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm. No, he was more like Jackson than Butterfield by far. My God.
Talk about things you didn't see coming.
Really? Oh, he was definitely part of. He was a very deep religious guy. Absolutely.
Andrea, half price books. Thanks.
Oh,
I needed that in my life.
Oh, half price books. I don't need any more books. Oh my God, Mary.
Well, that's what you're getting for your birthday.
No, good. I love that, but
the semi truck will be showing up on Monday.
Oh, there was that period a few weeks ago when you were full enabling mode, when I was getting Amazon truck every day. Between the Southern Storm. I got you a few times too. I got you in the Booth books, and I got you on the Black Iron Mercy book.
Yeah, you did.
Which is awesome, by the way. That book is fantastic.
Oh, I love Black Iron Mercy. It's one that you just like pick it up, and I'm like, geez, it's 11:30 and it's a school night. I got to get to bed.
G.K. Warren, though.
G.K. Warren, the Nikki Six.
He was the shout at the devil of the Civil War. And it's so funny was, that day when I was in Newport, Rhode Island, I went all the way down there just to see his gravestone. He is probably, after Mary Surratt, the hardest grave to find. Even with the Find a Grave website, it's just hard to find his grave. He's buried in a very nondescript part of the cemetery, in a real gigantic, weird little cemetery. But I found it though. But G.K. Warren's a good guy.
Yeah.
As far as that goes, and he really got screwed by Sheridan. Yeah. Screwed him.
Oh yeah, the short man syndrome they both had, right? And they were fucking having it out in front of Meade's tent, and Meade's like, "Could you not?"
No, but he definitely
he says, goes to Grant, Dad's being mean.
But I'll tell you though, he got out. He was a party, that Warren guy.
Him and Humphreys down in New Orleans. Holy fuck.
He threw his balls around more than Tom Brady did. That's for damn sure.
Or E.P. Alexander.
Oh, these guys are regular guys too. They really are. Boys will be boys.
No, I have to say, like, going into Warren's biography, and John mentioned this the other night on the live, like, I was tweeting about it for quite a while as I was reading about it, because I was just shocked at some of the shit from his early life. I was like, this guy's a fucking party animal.
They were.
He's writing his sister and saying, like, I flirted with Miss So-and-so whose name I don't remember. Like,
I mean, yeah, I guess. But these guys are that's the whole funny part about the reality of some of these movies and these books, is they were I mean, this is, first of all, wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
And these are young guys coming out of military academies or coming out of colleges for the first time in their lives, being away from home and being young 20s guys. They're going to live the lives they can. They're not any different than people are today.
Oh, exactly.
The reality. But the funny part about it is maybe you watch too many Gods and Generals or too many Gettysburgs of the world or too many Blue and Grays. You think they talk in Victorian English the way they are, and they all knelt down to women and put their coats down over puddles. That's not the way they were. They weren't. They were regular people like they are today.
Oh yeah. Unless you're like poor AP Hill and make an unfortunate trip to the New York City bank.
The gift that keeps on giving.
Poor AP Hill.
Sometimes a rash is not just a rash.
Poor Hill. And Heckman, I'd hang out with Warren, 19th century wingman. He totally, yeah.
Oh my God! Can you? I don't know. You might be the wingman, John, for Warren. I don't. You might have that backwards. You might be. You know. I'd be careful about that.
Allie said Sheridan always went to Grant and was like, "Dad, get this guy off my back." Yeah, that's
Laura,
like
sounds like me in college. I think Laura might have a story to tell. I think.
Hilarious. I love Laura. She's awesome. Andrea, I went to the headstone, pun totally intended, of Powell's noggin. That's in Florida, right?
What's that?
Where Lewis Powell's buried.
Lewis Powell, he's buried in Florida.
Florida,
yeah.
yeah.
Actually, yeah, that's where she just mentioned that, but that's where she went to go visit his grave. His head's buried there, but his body's whereabouts unknown.
And Andrea, stay off Warren's Rock. Swear to God, I'm going to carry a baseball bat next time I go up to the Little Round Top. Right?
$500 fine.
Yep.
And John was just there, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
You know, he does what I do all the time. There's nothing better in the world than sitting a Little Round Top by yourself smoking a cigar.
Yeah, I was low-key jealous of him, but I also commented and said, I was like, Darren and I plan on doing this when we go to when we can finally get to Gettysburg.
We'll do that. But whenever I go to, I was in Gettysburg twice in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 months or so, is I always go straight to Round Top. I always have a cigar with me. And I sit there, my little secret spot that no one goes to, and just fire up and just sit there and just contemplate the world. It is the most peaceful thing in the world, is having a cigar around top. You know, I mean, yeah, you obviously it'd be fun with you too, but I'm just saying when I go these last few times, it's just nice and peaceful and quiet. There's no better place. That's
what I want to do. I want to do it at Round Top, and I also want to do it at Horseshoe Ridge, Snodgrass Hill as well.
Mm-hmm.
And actually up at the Lytle Monument too.
I smoke a lot of cigars, Fincher.
I am. I haven't smoked a cigar in a long time, but I love
good hacking cough.
I know. Jim said the Roebling family story is another one of the Civil War stories that so often is overlooked, from the Civil War to Brooklyn Bridge and Titanic. Yep, it's very true.
Yeah, and there's the Roebling Bridge in Cincinnati that Andrea, if she's still on, will tell you all about. That connects Kentucky to Covington, Kentucky to Cincinnati, the Roebling Bridge, which I walked a handful of times last winter.
Nice.
Freezing my butt off, as a matter of fact. So anyway, I think we're about to wind down, Mary.
3 hours.
It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Huh?
That went by quick. Oh my God.
Time flies, and it's almost time to watch the Irish get their asses kicked.
So
we're going to watch that. We'll see what happens.
I think I am too.
Not, but, yeah,
3 beers for this one.
Good for you.
I gave up my salted caramel one. It was shit. Life is too short to drink shitty.
You didn't drink it all?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Didn't like it.
Yep. Andrea mentions the Roebling Bridge. I just mentioned that, Andrea. Thanks for listening. They have to shut it down. They shut that bridge down. What?
Darren, the comments are a little bit behind because our stream is actually 3 seconds behind or something like that.
Doesn't excuse her. You know. No, but
Andrea said sorry, burnt Spence Bridge.
Oh, okay. But that Roebling Bridge is really, really cool to walk across, because if you want to know about a beautiful, Cincinnati is a very underrated city. That is a cool place to go. Very fun place to go hang out in Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. But that bridge, you get to walk across it from Kentucky over the river. You see the whole skyline. Great place. You know.
Ryan, I wonder if biographers were honest how many of the great figures of the Civil War visited the Bang Barn regularly. Alternatively, I wonder if Hooker had lived longer, he could have batted off the accusations of his debauchery.
We may have stumbled upon something with this Bang Barn.
The Bang Barn.
The Bang Barn.
It's showing up a lot of places now.
Well, it's funny. The Bang Barn, the Boo Barn, the Ball Barn, all the stuff that's showing up now in these
Legos versus Megos.
It's pretty funny. Legos and Megos.
Awesome.
Anyway, well, I think this is good. I think we can shut this down. I think when people are going to go off and live their lives as productive as they possibly can besides us. So my feet are completely frozen out here, so that's pretty cool.
I told you to sit inside.
It's nice out. It's actually a nice day. It's just cold. It's like 40 degrees, but it's tolerable.
I'm sitting in my basement with a blanket around me, like on my legs.
What happened to your Snatch poster, by the way?
I told you I switched them around last night, and I've got Eric Bana up there from Munich.
That's right. The Munich's a good movie, but
anyway,
So you guys have a great day. Definitely have some fun today. Go out there, and Laura's going to visit some Civil War cemeteries, which we did last weekend. As a matter of fact, Mare.
Yeah, we
Saw
did.
some cool
It was fun.
cemeteries. We did. We visited some stuff, and Louisville was supposed to play Virginia, but it got ruined, unfortunately.
Yep.
And
Allie B's excited about the roundtable this week. That's right. Yes.
yes, that's right. We're going to mention that. So
Wednesday
Wednesday.
night.
So everyone's invited. Heckman. Okay.
Heckman, I'll send you the Zoom number on our little Facebook chat thing.
But definitely, we're going to do that Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern / Canadian Standard Time.
Yeah.
We'll be able to do that. So definitely check that out. We have a lot of fun with that. We had a great time last month when we did that. So we do this every third Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m. Just for an hour, not long, just hanging out, shooting the shit, talking about some stuff, whatever's on your mind. There's really no agenda. We just like to hang out and whatever people want to talk about. And no one's a participant. Everyone's a no one's a viewer. I mean, everyone's a participant. No one's a viewer. So, you know what I mean, for God's sakes. But everyone has to. That's your homework. You have to be a participant. You can't just be a viewer. So everyone's going to jump on.
Participant.
Are you done? Everyone giggle away. Have a great time, Mary. Go laugh away. But seriously, everybody who's on, everyone goes on, definitely prepare to participate, have a good time with it. It's a lot of fun. You know what? We're in this COVID world that we're in right now, and everyone's kind of stuck. Now we get together and hang out and have a great time with the Civil War stuff. So enjoy it. That's the whole point of it. So 11 p.m. GMT, which
Ryan's joining us. Thank you for staying up late.
Yeah, definitely. So it's
he'll be our first international. Well, besides, I don't really count Canada as international, so he'll be our first international.
That's true. So yeah, make your alarm to remind yourself, Allie. You're definitely mandatory.
Yeah, she wants to discuss the bang bar.
Well, okay. Well, definitely 50 Shades of Blue and Gray, I guess. We'll talk about that. Whatever you want to talk about, Allie, whatever's on your mind.
50 Shades of Blue and Gray.
50 Shades of Blue and Gray, the Bang Barnes
biography.
Definitely. So anyway, so this is cool. This is always fun to hang out and do this. I'm not sure how much March for the Sea we talked about, but whatever. Usual. But we'll talk about that next time. So anyway, that was a lot of fun. So we will talk soon. Definitely catch up soon for everybody. Definitely check us out on the podcast if you haven't. Definitely try to get on to the round table on Wednesday if you can. And if you want the Zoom link, just email us at civilwarbreakfastclub@gmail.com.
And if you already were part of it, if you already were part of the previous roundtable, I will be sending you an email probably tomorrow or Monday with the Zoom. I'll just send you the number to get into the meeting, and we'll go from there.
And next week we will be doing Chattanooga. Right?
Part 1 of Chattanooga. Yeah, hopefully I'm thinking we're going to get to the Battle of Lookout Mountain, and that's going to be a 2, possibly 3-parter, but I'm hoping just 2 we're going to do.
Whatever you want, Mary, whatever you want. And then we'll do this again next Saturday morning again. So again, thanks for everybody jumping on. Blue and Gray burgers are garbage. And what? Blasphemy by Andrea Lee Pike.
Oh, their veggie burger's really good.
Wow, that's crazy. Those peach wings, the best at Blue and Gray.
Oh, the peach sauce.
They're the best. Oh, but the burgers are good. I can't believe she would say that.
I love their veggie burgers. I'm not a vegetarian, but I love veggie burgers.
All right. Well, hey, teach their own, Andrew. I like the burgers at Blue and Gray. So anyway, so I think we're good for now. I think we're done. We'll cause enough damage for today. So we will catch up with you all soon. Thanks for stopping by. And we'll put a bow on this one. Inside joke. And we'll have
that sometime.
I know we will, but we'll have fun with that. So hey, everybody. So definitely look forward to talking to you all at the round table. So Mary, always a pleasure. We will talk to you soon. Go BC, as they say.
Go BC.
And hopefully they can win today. I'm not confident, but we'll always hope for the best as always. So hockey season starts soon. But anyway, thanks everybody. We will look forward to talking to you soon, and definitely try to get onto the round table. So thanks everybody, and we'll catch up with you. Catch up with you on the other side.
See you guys.
Peace out. We out?
Yeah, but I need to stop recording. Bye guys, on YouTube.
Bye.
Watching
See ya.
us. See ya.